I have a sweet at the end of the world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376. We meet again. Yao stared blankly at the man on the screen. Jiang Chen subconsciously raised his gun, but Lin Chaoan raised his hands in surrender. Don't get excited yet. Don't you want to listen to me finish my words? My intuition tells me that it must not be a good thing. Jiang Chen stared at him while aiming. Lin Chaoan? Why did this guy appear here? Who is he? Sun Jiao frowned and looked at Lin Chaoan. Just a robot, always causing trouble for me intentionally or unintentionally. Jiang Chen said bluntly. No, you may have misunderstood something. Lin Chaoan waved his hand and said with a smile, we have no intention of causing trouble to anyone. It's better to say that I'm your only way out. Way out? Jiang Chen asked playfully. That's right, there is nothing better than a metal body to adapt to this desperate world. Join us and we will give you a perfect body. A body that will never age and never die. His smile was very gentlemanly, but it flashed with the light of a devil. Same as you? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and smiled. Stronger than me? Lin Chaoan smiled brightly. It seems that the persuasion process went unexpectedly smoothly. In this way, the sixth block was indirectly included in the Supreme's territory. Dream on. Jiang Chen smiled. The smile solidified on Lin Chaoan's face. That's a pity. Lin Chaoan sighed. For him, an intermediate artificial intelligence, there is no such emotion as anger. It is better to say that even the smile is fake. As soon as the voice fell, a sharp roar came from outside the data center. Then, there was a series of sticky bubbles bursting. What happened? Sun Jiao's face changed, and she immediately raised her rifle and pointed it outside the door. The two soldiers raised the revolver barrels on their left arms and nervously aimed at the empty corridor. Venomous spider, an interesting insect. The door on the side wall of the corridor opened. The dense and tooth-grinding floor friction sound came, and under the light of the flashlight, wolfhound-sized spiders waved their hairy 8 legs and poured out of the door like a tide, rushing to the data center at the end of the corridor. Fire! Sun Jiao shouted and pulled the trigger first. Da. Fire snakes crisscrossed the corridor, tearing spiders into pieces. Flesh and blood bodies cannot compete with machine guns, but machine guns cannot stop the flow of water. The endless stream of spiders was like a rolling flood, carrying the curled corpses forward. Damn. Too many. Sun Jiao gritted her teeth and pulled the trigger tightly. At this time, a rifle grenade flew out, and the flames exploded in the corridor. Dark green blood and arthropod fragments covered the faces of the 2 soldiers in the front row. Another 4 rifle grenades flew out, and the flames penetrated the entire corridor. The flames dissipated, and the smell of burnt charcoal diffused from the corridor. There was still a flame that had not been extinguished on the ground, but there was no intact body of the venomous spider. Incendiary bombs, the nemesis of all carbon-based creatures. When did robots learn to raise insects? Jiang Chen retracted his left hand that was raised to the door, and looked at Lin Chaoan with disgust. Although he also knew that Lin Chaoan probably couldn't see the disgusted expression on his face through the mask of the power armor. I just turned off the infrasonic fence that suppressed these little guys from breaking out of their shells. If you have time, you might as well give these disgusting yet cute little pets a new name for me. After all, as an intermediate artificial intelligence, I don't have any artistic cells. Lin Chaoan said politely. The sound disappeared. Yao released the little hand that was pressed on her chest and stared blankly at the person on the screen. Because she often came into contact with electronic devices, she was very sensitive to this kind of sound. Yes, it disappeared. Lin Chaoan smiled gently, so it should come out too. The ground was faintly vibrating, and a series of sharp glass scratching sounds came from the hall across the corridor, but soon there was no movement. What the hell? Jiang Chen frowned slightly. When the light shone, there was still an empty space across the corridor. Are you really not considering surrendering? If you are willing to accept the supreme redemption, I might consider letting you go. Lin Chaoan smiled. I'm willing. Jiang Chen lied without blushing. There is a tube of special medicine on the table in the corner. Although it is not prepared for you, drink it, dream on it. Jiang Chen raised the muzzle of the gun, pulled the trigger, and fired a volley of bullets. The display screen crackled and shattered all over the floor. Yao, extract the data. Jiang Chen ordered in a deep voice. Okay. Yao recovered from the shock and hurried back to the touchpad, his fingers jumping on the operation panel quickly. Sun Jiao, release the drone. Okay. Taking out the hummingbird drone from the trunk, Sun Jiao skillfully threw it to the corridor. Stabilizing its posture in the air, the drone rushed steadily to the opposite side of the corridor. The camera hanging at the bottom shared the picture with the whole team. When the drone passed through the arch, Jiang Chen caught a glimpse of an angry face. Pale silk threads covered the corridor, and the huge body filled the entire circular floor. The calcified teeth that made your scalp numb were like bristles, densely embedded in the mouth. A giant spider. The dense hair and teeth made Jiang Chen's scalp numb. Although I couldn't read the spider's expression, I thought it should be very angry now. After all, those I killed just now were probably its descendants. Thinking of the infrasonic fence mentioned by Lin Chaoan, Jiang Chen roughly restored the grudge between him and the spider. For some reason, Lin Chaoan kept these spider eggs in captivity, and then used the infrasonic fence to suppress the mother spider in a certain position. Although Jiang Chen was not clear about his intention of keeping these spiders in captivity, it was probably not a good thing. The drone stopped suddenly, like a mosquito falling into a web. It was stuck tightly in the spider web. Then a black shadow flashed by, and the screen was covered with snowflakes. What should I do? Sun Jiao asked in a low voice in the private channel. When encountering such a monster, the power armor might not be enough. Jiang Chen looked at Yao. The little girl had completely calmed down, and her fingers quickly tapped the touchpad to crack the security program. Data copying completed. A young and firm voice sounded. Can the infrasonic fence be activated? Jiang Chen asked. No, it has been deleted. Yao anxiously tried to restore the deleted program, but the other party deleted it very thoroughly, without leaving any tail. No need to look for it. Take the USB drive, and get ready to go. Jiang Chen pulled the bolt, and said in a deep voice. But outside, Sun Jiao reminded. Yunzi 51, listen to the order. Fire at the center of the Geological Bureau. Jiang Chen decisively ordered, after connecting to the crew channel. Chapter 377 Retreat. Fire at the Geological Bureau? But aren't the people still inside? However, the crew hesitated for only 2 seconds before executing the order. For them, as the Knights of the Fishbone Base, the leader's order is absolute. Targeting completed. Fire. The gunner pressed the switch. Buzz. The 10-kilogram mass bomb went straight through the dome of the 3-story building. The broken concrete blocks peeled off like an avalanche and fell to the hollow underground floor, exposing the deep pit under the concrete. Stones fell like raindrops, smashing through the spiderweb and hitting the back of the giant spider. Although the deflected mass bomb was unfortunately embedded in the wall of the B12 floor and failed to directly hit the giant spider, the collapsed concrete blocks still crushed the spiderweb and crushed the behemoth to the floor at the bottom. Zizzy. A painful wail came from the other side of the corridor. The spider, which was hurt by the smash, kicked its 8 strong spider legs randomly, trying to get up from the ground. You're crazy. If this building collapses, we'll all be. Sun Jiao screamed. Jiang Chen continued to order, keep firing. Boom. The rising dust covered the opposite side of the corridor, and Jiang Chen stretched out his hand to protect Yao. Almost at the same time, the rolling dust crossed the corridor and poured into the data center. The asterisk stone scraped the power armor of the 2 soldiers at the door, making a ping pong sound. There was no life on the opposite side, and it was obvious that the spider was dead. Shaking off the dust on the rifle, Sun Jiao glared at Jiang Chen fiercely. You almost buried us, isn't it? Jiang Chen spread his hands innocently, curled up behind Jiang Chen. Yao poked out her little head tremblingly. It's okay now. Jiang Chen stretched out his hand to rub Yao's little head and said easily, woo, but the little lolly squatted down with her head covered. Stupid, your hands are covered with dust. Sun Jiao complained in the private channel. Jiang Chen withdrew his hand awkwardly. This little girl is getting more and more naughty. I'll show you how I'll deal with you when I get back. Jiang Chen glared at Sun Jiao fiercely. Although they were separated by armored masks, neither of them could see each other's expressions. After instructing the soldiers to extract samples from the giant spider and some spider eggs left on the wall, Jiang Chen ordered to retreat. Although most of the buildings on the surface collapsed, fortunately, the collapsed concrete blocks did not all fall into the underground layer and bury everyone alive. The spiral staircase was obviously destroyed, so Sun Jiao picked up Yao, and the 4 power armors sprayed blocks behind them, slowly climbing up. Although they did not alarm the zombies, these 4 iron lumps still attracted the attention of the throwers. This type of mutant zombie has a very sharp vision when looking up, and is simply a natural anti-aircraft soldier. Holding the hideous companion lava in his hand, the thrower closer to the ruins threw it at Sun Jiao. Jiang Chen caught a glimpse of this scene and instantly pulled out the tactical rifle on his waist. He held the barrel of the gun upside down with his right hand and swung it at the flying zombie lava like a baseball bat. With a muffled bang, the butt of the gun whipped the zombie lava back. The zombies exploded in the crowd. Oh my god, this thing has such a strong explosion power. Jiang Chen was secretly amazed. Thank you. Holding the trembling Yao, Sun Jiao playfully threw a wink to Jiang Chen that he couldn't see. Thank me when you get back. Jiang Chen was holding the rifle and aiming at the grinning thrower. Bang! A sniper bullet flew over and broke its neck like lightning, taking down the head before Jiang Chen could. One after another, the gunshots drifted from afar, and the necks of the throwers that could pose a danger to the 5 people were broken one after another. After a pause, Jiang Chen smiled and gave a thumbs up to the distance. The 4 powered armors went straight through the ruins, climbed up 300 meters, and boarded the descending IS-51. After sitting firmly, the helicopter flew towards the high-rise building 1,000 meters away. After taking Zhao Gang on board, the pilot closed the hatch and drove the helicopter back out of the radiation zone. Jiang Chen opened his helmet and breathed a sigh of relief. Did you bring the USB drive? Yes. Yao nodded seriously. Can I transfer the data to my app now? No problem. The rear of the armor cracked, and Jiang Chen crawled out of the power armor. After hanging the nylon buckle on the armor, he stretched out his left arm and handed the app to Yao. The little girl skillfully took out the holographic computer, imported the data from the USB flash drive, and then connected the data cable of the holographic computer to Jiang Chen's app. At this time, Jiang Chen realized that he was simply wasting his time. If he had known that Yao brought a holographic computer, he could have just used that thing to see it directly. In order to pursue stability, the screen of the app is not only small, but also has no holographic function. It is really inconvenient to use it to view the world map. As worthy of being the economic center of PAC, the information of the Wanghai City Geological Bureau is very comprehensive. It not only includes the global mineral resource distribution map that Jiang Chen wants, but also includes the proven mineral deposits on the moon and Mars. Using the holographic computer to call up the image, Jiang Chen found the location of the Panu Islands in this world. After filtering out the incomprehensible earthquake information and miscellaneous parameters, Jiang Chen directly checked the mineral vein distribution image. When he saw the series of dense red dots, Jiang Chen's face suddenly lit up. As expected, how could there be no mineral deposits in the vast sea area of the Panu Islands? In the east of Angkor Island, near New Guinea, it happens to be the rich mineral area of the Pacific Ring of Fire and Seismic Belt. In the 200,000 square kilometers of deep sea extending to the northeast, there are 17 large and small rare earth deposits with rich reserves. The estimated rare earth reserves are 9.8 million tons, which is equivalent to 1.5 times the reserves of rare earth deposits discovered by Japan in the waters near Minamitashima in 2012. In addition to rare earth resources, the reserves of iron, aluminum, manganese, copper, gold and other minerals are also frighteningly high. This can no longer be described as a simple treasure. It is not an exaggeration to call it a windfall. Jiang Chen wanted to go back right now and ask Yang Yuan to prepare for mining as soon as possible so as to solve the rare earth problem that was giving him a headache. Deep sea mining was a technical challenge for all countries in the 21st century, but it was not a big problem for Jiang Chen. He believed that the 22nd century scientists in Shelter 27 could not fail to solve such a small problem. Of course, he could not go back now. If he was really sent back to the world from this 1,000-meter altitude, he would have to play free fall next time he came back. After returning to the fishbone base, Jiang Chen almost calmed down from his excitement. The seabed mining technology had not yet been developed, so it would not be of much use, even if he went back now. After parking the T4 power armor in the armory, Jiang Chen found Wang Qing. He handed the samples collected from the giant spider and spider eggs to her, and asked her to ask someone to send them to Camp 27 as soon as possible and hand them over to the scientific researchers there for testing. After giving these instructions, Jiang Chen paused for a moment at the door of the community center, with an evil smile on his face. Lin Chaoan, are you so brave? How dare you cheat me? Do you really think I can't spare the time to deal with you? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378 Retaliation Bombing. In the Liaoding Town radar station, more than 20 staff members wearing old Pak Marine Corps uniforms were staring at the screen nervously. The middle-aged man wearing a general's cap looked at the red dot on the radar with a gloomy face, and a nervous expression also appeared between his eyebrows. Launch. Confirmed to launch. A drop of cold sweat ran down his forehead. The staff member closest to the general tapped the keyboard with trembling fingers, repeatedly confirming the reliability of the signal. What happened to Tang Ma's watch? Didn't she say that she had reached an agreement with that dictatorial madman? Staring at the red dot that was rising in height, the general had cursed someone countless times in his heart. The missile is approaching the troposphere. The general cursed inwardly and took out the phone from his waist. No one gun position personnel. Listen to the order. Raise the electromagnetic ship gun. Received. Since the failed Falcon crash last year, the heavy electromagnetic gun has not been used for a long time. However, because of the dangerous actions of the fishbone base, this electromagnetic gun was put to use again. However, everyone knew that, if they really fought desperately, Liaoding Town would definitely lose in the end. Once the tanks of the fishbone base broke through those vulnerable allies and rushed to the side of the Bohai aircraft carrier, it would only be a matter of time before Liaoding Town was sunk. The missile has reached the stratosphere and started to turn. The landing point has been confirmed. The target is the edge of Songjiang City near the city center. The alarm is lifted. In just 2 seconds, things took a dramatic turn again. The alarm was lifted, not targeting Liaoding Town. The general was stunned. He originally thought that the dictator entrenched in the west of Wanghai City finally couldn't sit still and showed his sinister claws towards Liaoding Town. However, he didn't expect that the target of this ballistic missile was not Liaoding Town or Liaoding Town's allies, but an unknown force in the city center. After a moment of silence, the general continued to give orders. The aviation department, listen to the order. Send a helicopter to investigate the target area. Received. The Bifeng 76 imitation ballistic missile was developed and completed by Jiang Lin of the Aerospace Research Institute. In the battle against mutants, it first demonstrated its powerful lethality. After taking over Shelter 27, Jiang Lin further improved it. For example, he replaced the engine, fuel, streamlined the combat components, and finally achieved this Bifeng 76 imitation ballistic missile. The fishbone base produced a total of 5 such missiles and deployed them in the lower lying areas of the suburbs to replace the previous unreliable big firecrackers to deal with the deterrence of the electromagnetic naval guns in Liaoding Town. At this moment, standing in front of the launch pad of the Shengxiang Town colony in the southwest of Wanghai City, several rocket maintenance personnel from the fishbone base were busy doing the final launch inspection. The number 5 launch pad deployed in Shengxiang Town received an order from Jiang Chen, the highest leader of the base, and immediately started the missile launch program. The green indicator light was on, and the launch coordinates had been transmitted to the main control program of the rocket. Regional coordinates locked. Engine ignition. Launch pad separation. Launch. Thick white smoke swept across the street. The 6 meters high ballistic missile separated from the launcher and flew towards the sky filled with radioactive dust. The gray ballistic missile pierced through the clouds like a sharp sword. Then, like a roaring fireball, it slammed into the ground fiercely. This is the coordinate that Jiang Chen got from the bearded mercenary. Due to the strong defense, he has not been able to confirm whether there is any connection between this place and Lin Chaoan. But it doesn't matter now. Lin Chaoan has completely pissed Jiang Chen off. Robot, cyborg, whatever secrets you have, go to hell. Let your nest test my weapons. The radar installed on the apartment building detected the ballistic missile, but before the sentry machine gun could point its muzzle at the sky, the missile smashed through the floors of the target apartment building like a meteorite, and then exploded in the middle of the apartment building. The high temperature even melted the cement. The scattered metal pieces and cement fragments rolled with the airwaves, and the entire apartment building was blown into pieces like a balloon that had been blown up. The shock wave of the explosion destroyed the building structure. 5 minutes later, the 2 adjacent apartment buildings also collapsed into the ruins. Standing in the command post of Camp 27, Jiang Chen stared at the ruins on the screen. The shock wave of the explosion even shook the drone 5 kilometers away. Send ground troops to search the area. Yes. Wang Xiaowu stood at attention, saluted, and turned to leave the office. As soon as Wang Xiaowu left, Zulu walked in. With a smile, Zulu took out the tablet in her hand and reported to Jiang Chen. The results of the sample analysis are out. The poison sac of the spider egg contains a hallucinogenic toxin. The poisoned person will show symptoms such as madness and foaming at the mouth. Hallucinogenic? Jiang Chen frowned. Zulu nodded and continued. In addition, according to pharmacological analysis, some of the organic components contained in this toxin have many similarities with the good time potion sold by the unidentified businessman at the entrance of the camp last time. Based on this, it can be preliminarily concluded that this spider egg is the raw material for preparing the good time potion. Good time. Robots obviously don't need this kind of drug, so this drug should be used by humans. Earn subcrystals by selling drugs. Not likely. That Lin Chaoan doesn't look like a businessman. And the Crimson Chamber of Commerce has an unusual relationship with Lin Chaoan. Supreme. Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and fell into deep thought. If possible, he did not want to go to war with forces that did not have conflicts of interest. When facing the end of the world, people have many ideas, including the Twilight Church that practices escapism, the PLA that tries to restore the 20th century regime, the Northern United District that claims to be the Orthodox Pan-Asian Cooperation, PAC, and the Supreme represented by the forces behind Lin Chaoan. From the perspective of interests alone, there is no direct conflict between the Fishbone Base and them. For some reason, he suddenly remembered the conversation between Academician Qin and him. The rebirth of civilization will inevitably be accompanied by bloody barbarism. Jiang Chen silently recited this monologue. Zulu stood quietly not far from the desk, waiting for his instructions. At this time, the phone on the desk suddenly rang, interrupting Jiang Chen's thoughts. Reaching out and pressing on the table, a soldier's face appeared in the center of the screen. Saluting Jiang Chen, he quickly reported. A Liuding Town helicopter appeared over the target area. Liuding Town. Jiang Chen touched his chin. The purpose of launching this ballistic missile was to retaliate, and on the other hand, it was also intended to deter Liuding Town. After all, this Bifeng 76 is not cheap, and it would be a waste if it was only used to retaliate against the forces behind Lin Chaoan. Don't worry about them. Continue searching the target area. Jiang Chen ordered. Yes. The soldier saluted again and ended the communication. Chapter 379, Psychic Commissar. The search results came out quickly, and Wang Xiaowu summarized and reported them to Jiang Chen. A search team of 30 soldiers, transported by assault infantry vehicles and 2 modified trucks, arrived in front of the bombed apartment building on the edge of the city center. After 2 hours of careful search, the search team still found a lot of useful information. From the ruins of the explosion, they found the remains of about 20 sentry machine guns and 2 radar devices. The actual number will definitely be more than this, but these are the only ones that can be confirmed. In addition, there are some special production equipment, which seems to be used to produce and process some special parts. However, due to the serious damage, the searchers could not identify what they were used to produce. Judging from some mutant fruits used to produce nutritional mixtures, there should be traces of human activities here. There was also an unexpected surprise in this search. In a buried corner, they found a half-damaged quantum computer. Judging from the specifications, this quantum computer should be experimental grade. Although they didn't know whether it could be repaired, everyone still moved it onto the truck neatly. The helicopter in Liuding Town did not interfere with the search of the target area by the Fishbone base. It just hung there and watched from a distance and did not even send anyone down. The only thing that had a certain impact on the search work was a group of corpses that gathered here because of the noise and a meat mountain that happened to wander here. However, when preparing to retreat, the convoy was attacked by a group of unidentified armed element. Most of these armed element used laser weapons and suddenly launched an attack when the convoy was evacuating the ruins. However, the leader of the search team reacted quickly and immediately called on the soldiers to fight back from the bunkers. The exchange of fire lasted about 5 minutes. Under the large caliber machine gun fire of the assault infantry vehicle, the firepower of the search team was obviously dominant. After leaving more than a dozen corpses, the group of armed element quickly fled. When Jiang Chen learned that the search team had found a quantum computer from the ruins, he immediately met with the captain of the team, ZHU Zheng, and personally put on the knight's medal for him to commend his contribution to the base. After sending away the flattered new knight, Jiang Chen found Zulu, and through her found an expert in quantum computers in the base to inspect the damaged quantum computer. Fortunately, according to the expert found by Zulu, although the hard disk area of the quantum computer was severely damaged, the damage to the most critical processor part was still within the repairable limit. Even with the existing technical conditions in the shelter, it is possible to repair this quantum computer. After hearing this good news, Jiang Chen immediately ordered Zulu to mobilize all available resources and give priority to the repair of the quantum computer. For the research team of shelter number 27, its significance is too great. Especially this kind of experimental quantum computer is a rare treasure in the wasteland. Although I don't know why Cheoan Station has this thing. Anyway, this treasure now belongs to Jiang Chen. After explaining the matter clearly, Zulu left with the elderly quantum computer expert. Leaning back in his boss chair, Jiang Chen took a deep breath and took out the half-drafted reform bill facing the empty office. It's much more troublesome than I thought. Throwing the document on the table, Jiang Chen ruffled his hair like crazy. He had almost planned the system and law. With the reference opinions provided by the law department talents of the Fishbone base, combined with the political literacy cultivated when he was a keyboard warrior in college, it took nearly 3 months of effort to refine a set of rules and regulations suitable for the wasteland society. It was not very difficult. The only trouble is the reform of the command system. Sweeping away the pile of documents, Jiang Chen picked up the tablet on the corner of the table. With a slide of his fingers, a column of data appeared in front of him. 1517 soldiers, 1000 recruits, 323 knights. Have I awarded so many knights? Jiang Chen muttered to himself, and his fingers continued to slide down. Wang King, the head of logistics, counted all the military equipment information on this list. There is no clue at all. Sighing, Jiang Chen stood up and walked out the door. Pushing open the door of the basement, Jiang Chen saw the defeated female colonel again. Han Junhua's face was expressionless, like a relief of granite. You can read the outline, but you can't read any emotional color. Facing that face without any emotion, Jiang Chen was speechless for a moment. What made him feel powerless was not that he couldn't find a point to start the topic, but that he couldn't find a trace of resentment on her face. Yes, it was resentment. If there is no resentment, there will be no fear. If there is no fear, then there is no such thing as compromise. Jiang Chen suddenly felt a little regretful. Maybe he shouldn't have chosen that meaningless approach in the first place. In this bright but dead basement, time passed quietly. Are you just here to see me? Han Jianhua broke the silence first. I just don't know what to say, Jiang Chen said in an uncertain tone. Han Jianhua didn't respond, but just looked away, as if she had lost interest. If she had such a thing as interest. Suddenly, Jiang Chen seemed to understand something. I can more or less understand your feelings. Normal people can't feel it. Han Jianhua answered quickly. Normally, you can't feel it. After a pause, Jiang Chen continued, have you heard of genetic drugs? Then I believe you should have heard of it. People who have been injected with that thing may have some special mutations. A certain section of DNA that is not usually expressed. Han Jianhua asked. Yes. Hidden gene code. Jiang Chen finally remembered the name. So. Han Jianhua looked at Jiang Chen quietly. It's very uncomfortable to have no emotions, Jiang Chen said softly. After opening Unparalleled, the feeling of emptiness from having emotions removed from the body. Although I have only experienced it twice, no matter how many times I recall that feeling, it is chilling. Han Jianhua looked into Jiang Chen's eyes. It's more like emptiness than discomfort. Because Pac no longer exists, right? It was not because of loyalty to Pac, nor was it out of responsibility. Those things had dissipated with the end of the mission from the moment she took off the duties of the shelter director. However, that was her whole life. Jiang Chen had only just realized this. Han Jianhua did not answer directly, but asked, have you heard of the Psychic Commissar project? Jiang Chen shook his head. Use electric current to engrave thoughts and write creeds into the soul. Han Jianhua continued. Electric current? Are you a cyborg? Jiang Chen frowned. No. The Psychic Commissar targets living people. It is jokingly called the Officer Mass Production Program in the military. Simply put, it is to write thoughts and other things into the brain like a program. The commanders who pass this program have absolutely correct thoughts. No matter what kind of predicament they face, they will not make wrong judgments due to personal emotions, nor will they have psychological burdens due to the results of their judgments. Usually, we are used to perform some shady tasks. For example, suppressing separatists and clearing out instigators. Han Jianhua said softly. Jiang Chen was stunned and couldn't help holding his breath. He saw people who wanted to turn computers into human brains, and now he saw people who wanted to turn human brains into computers. This is really. He couldn't think of any words to describe it. Evil? No, there is nothing more evil than nuclear weapons. When the war breaks out, all morals and bottom lines will become a joke. In the information age, history may not necessarily be written by the victors, but only the victors are qualified to comment on history. For him, who was born in a peaceful era, it is impossible for him to understand the determination faced by people at that time. Don't sympathize with me. All those who joined the Psychic Commissar program are volunteers, Han Jianhua said lightly. There was no regret on her face, but her eyes gradually became lonely. It's just that, when I completed the last mission, I didn't know what to do. Looking at this expressionless female colonel, Jiang Chen fell silent. From the beginning, he misunderstood her persistence. Let's make a deal. Han Jianhua looked at Jiang Chen with an inquiring look. Emotions, right? Although I'm not a scientist, I believe that science can solve this problem. You help me realize my ambition, and I help you find what you're missing. How about it? Jiang Chen looked into her eyes seriously and said, implant a new psychic commissar into the brain? I think I may not need that kind of thing. No, it's to regain the same emotions as normal people. Jiang Chen shook his head. Han Jianhua fell into a brief silence. How can I trust you? Even if you don't trust me, there is no better choice, right? Jiang Chen said seriously. What I'm asking is, how can I trust you can do it? Is this difficult to do? Jiang Chen asked. When I was undergoing the operation, my superiors had already clearly told me that I would become a machine-like existence more similar to a cyborg. Even if the war is won and everyone has a happy ending, I can't possibly get more comfort besides honor. Han Jianhua said softly. Even with the most advanced technology before the war, it is impossible to remove the psychic commissar? Jiang Chen asked in a deep voice. Han Jianhua shook his head. Then you should choose me. Jiang Chen smiled and snapped his fingers. Han Jianhua cast an inquiring look at him. I will restore the order of this wasteland, and the scientific research system will be rebuilt. By then, even if the technology of the 22nd century cannot solve your problem, I believe that in the distant 23rd century, 24th century, or even 25th century, your problem will be solved one day. When everything is over, I will arrange for you to lie in the dormant chamber to the future. Looking directly into her eyes, Jiang Chen said seriously. She closed her eyes and thought for a long time. After a long time, she opened her eyes. You convinced me. Chapter 380 New Asian Cooperation Organization. After a week of preparation, a top-down reform within the military government began. In the morning, standing under the statue of the Mother of Deathclaw, Jiang Chen read the reform bill that had been brewing for half a year to all the survivors in the Fishbone base. First of all, the administrative system. The reform bill made it clear that the Fishbone base would exist as a military institution, establish a unified military government to govern all territories, and divide the territories into two major administrative districts. One is the economic zone, which is open to any survivor, and implements a pseudo-democratic system of military government ruling the army and elected parliament ruling the country. The parliament has the right to make laws, but the military government has the right to veto resolutions based on national interests. At the same time, the military government will send executive officers to supervise all aspects of the economic zone, just like what is happening in the 6th district now. One is the military zone, which is closed to non-military personnel, implements comprehensive militarized management, and implements a citizen hierarchy system from slaves to knights. Everyone swears allegiance to the supreme leader and absolutely obeys his leadership. In addition to slaves, all citizens and knights have vacations of varying lengths to use at their own disposal, during which time they can choose to go to the economic zone to enjoy a free life. But in the military base, there is no such thing as freedom, only command and obedience. The Fishbone base Shengxiang Town Colony and Camp 27 were included in the military zone. This model is equivalent to dividing the sword and the plowshare into two parts, but the interaction between the two is inseparable. The tax revenue and manpower of the economic zone feed the military zone's armed forces, and at the same time, the military zone's factories also export excess production capacity to the market of the economic zone as an independent company. In this way, both the economic capacity of the 6th block and the combat effectiveness of the military zone are preserved. In addition, in order to maintain the stable operation of this model, Jiang Chen announced this decision and launched a welfare policy for the survivors of the military zone, that is, the salary system. Except for the slave class, people from all other classes will receive a basic salary every month. Citizens are 10 to 20 sub-crystals, knights are 50, and this value will float upwards depending on the specific position. In the past, the Fishbone base did not pay salaries, but only provided meals. But as the economy of the 6th block next door gradually developed, continuing the previous practice would inevitably make the lower level soldiers have some ideas. So Jiang Chen took this opportunity to announce this decision. Although this means that the military government will increase its monthly expenditure by tens of thousands of crystals, Jiang Chen can still afford this amount of crystals compared to the food business of the Fishbone base and the taxes of the 6th block. As long as the person is loyal to him, Jiang Chen does not mind letting him live a good life. The next step is the arrangement of the leadership. The highest leader of the military government is the marshal, who is held by Jiang Chen. The highest administrative unit is the marshal's office, which is established by Jiang Chen himself nominating candidates. The main responsibilities of the marshal's office are to supervise the operation of other departments, adjust the work of the entire military government, and appoint and dismiss the governors of each administrative district. The original redundant departments were disbanded and reorganized, and the newly established administrative department unified the management of all administrative and construction affairs in the base, and the logistics department managed the production and all material allocation affairs in the base. The head of the administrative department is Lu Huosheng, the former head of the construction department, and Wang Qing is still the head of the logistics department. The heads of the two departments are directly responsible to the highest leader, the marshal. Then there is the reform of the command system. In order to avoid confusion in command, Jiang Chen established 3 corps and a relatively independent hunter corps to command the soldiers in the base. The first corps was headed by Cheng Weiguo, the second corps was headed by Wang Xiaowu, and the third corps was headed by Xiao Gang. The establishment is tentatively set at 1,000 people, mainly composed of infantry and armored units. The leader of the Hunter Corps is Ma Zhongcheng, and the establishment is tentatively set at 200 people, and the arms are mainly composed of scouts and snipers. It is mainly responsible for performing special tasks and supporting the other 3 corps in wartime. The members of the corps are all former lone travelers or King Pu survivors. Their individual combat effectiveness and survival ability are relatively stronger than ordinary soldiers. They can better play their combat value when acting alone, so they were pulled out to form a separate corps. As for heavy equipment such as hunting tigers and power armor, they were allocated to the 3 corps according to needs. The Yunzi 51 was allocated to the Hunter Corps to improve its mobility. Among the 323 knights, those who hold military positions were assigned to various corps as grassroots officers. They all have honor chips implanted, and their loyalty is beyond doubt. As for the details of the army's construction, Han Junhe also meticulously perfected them for him and refined a top-down command system. Jiang Chen also entrusted her with the attitude of trusting people, and she did not disappoint him and completed these tasks very skillfully. In this way, the soldiers will no longer encounter the embarrassing situation of not knowing who to follow at critical moments. On the other hand, the reform bill also made further clarifications on the name of this military government. This is already considered the establishment of a country, and Jiang Chen is naturally embarrassed to use the name of a canned food as the name of the military government. So, after referring to the opinions of other senior officials of the base and Han Junhe, he chose New Asian Cooperation Organization as the name of the military government, abbreviated as NAC. From this name alone, we can see Jiang Chen's ambition. The above is the full content of the reform. In the era of civilization, such an aggressive political system is obviously impossible to exist, but there is no problem in this wasteland, where there are no constraints such as human rights and morality. People are eager to have such a strong voice to formulate a rule that everyone will abide by in this wasteland. Even if it has flaws, at least it can bring the stability that everyone dreams of. But it is undeniable that most survivors are unconstrained. They may desire stability, but they are not necessarily willing to sacrifice their freedom for it. As for how to balance the balance of freedom and order in the hearts of survivors, it can only be left to time to adjust. Now that the command system is complete, I can also start preparing for recruiting soldiers, Chunan said, standing in front of Jiang Chen's office. In view of the great significance of this reform, as the acting marshal of the 6th block, he naturally has to come back. Of course, his current identity is the executive officer of the 6th block, but except for the change of job title, his authority has not changed. How many people do you think you can recruit? Jiang Chen asked. It depends on what price we can offer and how many people you need, Chunan said. We plan to recruit 3,000 new soldiers with a contract of 5 years. All new soldiers will automatically obtain lower class citizen status after joining the army and enjoy a monthly salary of 10 subcrystals. After a 6-month training period, new soldiers who pass the assessment will officially obtain NAC soldier status and be promoted to upper class citizens with a salary increase of 20 subcrystals per month. Try to complete it before mid-June. Can you do it? Han Junhe said concisely, standing beside Jiang Chen. This is also the current salary level of regular soldiers in the 3 legions. This salary may not attract capable people to join the army, but it is still very tempting for low-income people. Especially after becoming an upper-class citizen, you will be able to enjoy unlimited rations. Even middle-income people will inevitably be tempted. After thinking it over in his mind, Chunan nodded. Okay. There are also lone travelers, mercenaries, or hunters with outstanding abilities. If they are willing to join the Stalker Corps, NAC will offer them a monthly salary of no less than 50 subcrystals, and the contract is also for 7 years. Do you have any questions? Chunan shook his head. There is no more conscription, and there is also the defense of the 6th district. The defense of the 6th block will be undertaken by the 3rd Corps. What about the other 2 corps? Chunan looked at Han Junhe. The 1st Corps will be stationed in Shengxiang town and will be responsible for border defense. Cheng Weiguo will be responsible for the training of new recruits. Chunan nodded secretly. Cheng Weiguo used to be in charge of the training of new recruits. It is indeed a good choice for him to be in charge. The second corps will be responsible for the defense of camp number 27 and Fishbone Base. The Stalker Corps will be on standby at Fishbone Base. In addition, I have another proposal. Han Junhe looked at Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen nodded. She had discussed this proposal with him the day before yesterday, so it was nothing to bring it up now. After obtaining Jiang Chen's permission, Han Junhe continued. There are currently a large number of uncontrolled civilian armed forces in the 6th block. I think they should be restrained. That's impossible, Chunan said with a wry smile. Mercenaries, hunters, and scavengers have become an integral part of the 6th block's economy. And apart from that, we don't have the ability to recruit them at all. Not recruiting. Han Junhe crossed his arms and said calmly, just managing them. For example, a mercenary union will be established in the name of the military government, and the information of all mercenaries, hunters, and scavengers will be registered, and their credit and task completion records will be counted. For these mercenaries, they will be able to obtain commissions more conveniently, and they don't have to worry about defaulting on commissions. For businessmen, they also don't have to worry about hiring dirty hands and feet. For us, we will gain a sense of belonging to the entire 6th block civilian armed forces. In this way, in order to maintain their own credit, I believe that those dirty hands and feet mercenaries will also be more restrained. Those capitalists who rely on their capital status to cheat the weak scavengers will also be restrained because of the existence of the mercenary union. Even if we don't consider the security aspect, just from the economic aspect, this proposal is of great benefit. In addition, when necessary, we can charge a low commission for the commission. Jiang Chen added leisurely in his heart. Chunan was silent for a long time after listening to Han Junhe's words. After a moment, he looked at Jiang Chen and congratulated him with a sigh. It seems that you have found a good advisor. Jiang Chen smiled brightly. I think so too. Chapter 381 Mercenary Union. It was late at night, and most people had already gone to sleep. However, the pseudo-leg tavern on the commercial street was bustling with activity. Mercenaries and hunters sat together, drinking beer brewed by Shell Valley at 3 crystals a bottle, playing poker and boasting about their harvest today. Scavengers also sat in the corners in groups of 3 or 4, drinking and discussing good places to scavenge. The scantily clad bar girls lazily lay beside the bar, waiting for tonight's prey to fall into their trap. Zhao Guoping, the bartender, stood in front of the bar, wiping the glass as usual, and occasionally chatting with the familiar prostitute lying in front of the bar. In a sense, the boss and bartender's buddy was very famous among these people, who were willing to take risks. Anyone who had caused trouble in this tavern had, without exception, suffered a bad fate. Everyone was guessing his identity, and many people even gave him the nickname of Bald Bartender. Of course, no one would guess that his true identity is a spy responsible for collecting intelligence for the actual controller of the 6th block. Oldly, you just came back from Liuding Town. Did you encounter any fun there? A mercenary wearing alien leather armor asked his old friend with a burp. It's still the same. It's so boring that it makes people sleepy. The mercenary with a shaved head took a sip of wine and waved his hand. Compared with the prosperity of the 6th block, the glory of Liuding Town has gradually been overshadowed. Really? Haha, where is the goddess of the Screw Tavern? I remember that girl is your dream lover. The mercenary on the side patted Oldly on the shoulder and laughed loudly. I haven't seen her. I guess she is not active in Wanghei City anymore. The mercenary called Oldly said a little annoyed. I hope you are not caught by some predator group and used as a barbecue. One person whistled and laughed. If you don't want me to stuff you into the toilet and choke you, I advise you to shut your dog mouth. Oldly stood up with a gloomy face. However, the mercenary did not show weakness, but whistled provocatively. Fuck his mother. Oldly, this guy was just joking. You treat him as a fart. The mercenary on the side hurriedly pulled him back and secretly pointed at Zhao Guoping, who had stopped his actions. Although Oldly's face was still ugly, he still sat down. Following his friend's finger, the foul-mouthed mercenary also shrank his neck and sat back. Fighting here is simply not wanting to live. Zhao Guoping glanced at the few people, and seeing that the mercenaries had settled down, he continued to wipe the cup in his hand, but he sneered in his heart. A bunch of idiots. Your goddess has been played with by a tall, rich and handsome man in different positions for many times. It was quite sad to say that Chunan had become the executive officer of the 6th district, but he was still a tavern owner and had not even received a notice to go back to participate in the reform bill. Although he was still famous as the bold bartender among a group of small characters, only he knew the specific situation. Even when facing Zhao Chenwu, who surrendered to Jiang Chen, his status was more than a head lower. To be honest, he was really afraid of running into Chunan. After all, he had run into Zhao Zhaoxia when he was a bandit in the Grey Goo mercenary group. Although Chunan didn't seem to take him seriously, Zhao Guoping knew that his weight in the boss's heart was probably not even 1/10 of Chunan's, and it would be easy for him to kill him. Since the 6th district was occupied by the Fishbone base, the presence of his tavern that collected intelligence had become weaker. Just as he was distracted for a while, the communicator he placed under the bar vibrated. Zhao Guoping put the cup and drag aside as usual, took out the communicator from under the bar, and took a look. When he saw the big words on the screen, he was obviously stunned, and then an ecstatic expression appeared on his face. Sender, Jiang Chen content, come back. After half a year, the boss finally remembered him. Throwing the work to other guys, Zhao Guoping pulled his coat and put it on, and walked out of the tavern without stopping. To be honest, Jiang Chen didn't really want to reuse people with moral stains. But after thinking about it, it seems that Zhao Guoping is the only one among his subordinates who has more dealings with mercenaries. He is really the most suitable candidate for the president of this mercenary union. At this moment, Zhao Guoping was standing in front of Jiang Chen's desk, burying his head and waiting for his instructions. Come to think of it, you are quite fast. Jiang Chen smiled. How dare I neglect you? I came here as soon as I received the news, Zhao Guoping said flatteringly. Seeing Zhao Guoping's flattering look, Jiang Chen smiled and pulled out a stack of paper documents from the table. Don't be nervous. It's a good thing that I asked you to come. Take this document and have a look. Zhao Guoping smiled flatteringly, nodded and took the document, then roughly flipped through it, but was stunned before reading 2 lines. Mercenary Guild? That's right. I plan to let you be the president of this guild, Jiang Chen said with a smile, crossing his fingers on the desk. Thank you, Marshal. Zhao Guoping was so excited that he almost called out the wrong words. His exaggerated acting skills almost made him kowtow. Okay, I'll save the flattery for later. I asked you to come here for this matter. I have already asked others to take care of the station. It will be built directly opposite the bank in the 6th block. Your task is to set up this mercenary union. I hope to see your results within a week. I guarantee to complete the task. Zhao Guoping patted his chest and promised. Then go. Jiang Chen sent him away. After bowing, Zhao Guoping turned to leave. But when he reached the door, he stopped as if he had thought of something, turned around and asked, by the way, that artificial leg tavern, I will find someone else to replace you. Your work focus will be on managing the mercenary union in the future. Jiang Chen said. Yes. Zhao Guoping respectfully left the door. About half a minute later, Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair and asked Han Junhe, who was standing aside and watching. What do you think of giving this position to this kind of person? Han Junhe only took 2 seconds to think. In terms of ability alone, he is the most suitable candidate. Having a certain prestige among mercenaries is indeed more appealing than an unknown person. If someone like Cheng Weiguo or Zhao Gang were to be the president, I'm afraid it would be difficult to form this mercenary union. What about other aspects? If I can read people's minds, I won't lose to you. Han Junhe answered very calmly. Jiang Chen smiled without comment. Then I'm really lucky. Chapter 382. Are you serious? Han Junhe's home was arranged in a separate apartment building. Jiang Chen met her request and let her live as far away from the crowd as possible. When he asked her why she did this, her answer was also very simple. Because I like quiet places. Really? What a unique hobby. Jiang Chen said casually. After work, Han Junhe and Jiang Chen walked out of the community center side by side. Today is the last item of reform work, and work will be much easier starting tomorrow. I have always wanted to ask, is this the death claw? Stopping in front of the statue of the Mother of Death Claws, Han Junho looked up and down at the monster. The Mother of Death Claws. Normal death claws are not this big, nor are they this difficult to deal with. Recalling the death battle in front of Lake Mall, Jiang Chen was also quite emotional. Although the actual killer of this guy was the mass bullet of the Type 50 electromagnetic cannon, in the end, it was passed on and became all his credit. Did you kill it? Jiang Chen turned his head to look at her in confusion, but still answered in a casual tone. To be precise, I fought it to a draw, and it should be the Type 50 electromagnetic cannon that really killed it. Then is it the most powerful alien species in this wasteland? Han Junho asked. It can be considered as such. Perhaps there are more powerful alien species, but Jiang Chen has never seen them. Han Junho didn't say anything else, just crossed his arms, and fell into deep thought. The two didn't talk along the way. Jiang Chen then walked her a distance, and said goodbye to her, walking towards the direction of the villa. Passing through the quiet path, Jiang Chen pushed open the door of the villa, and habitually hung his coat on the hanger at the door. Are you back? Sun Jiao, who was wearing a long skirt, stood at the door, and asked with a smile. Your wheelchair, neural bridge. It bypasses the damaged area of the brain by building a bridge, and completes the information exchange between the spinal nerves and the brain on the circuit board. Turning around and gently lifting the hair on the back of her neck, she revealed the external device that fits the back of her neck like a neck protector, and the Snow White behind her. She was wearing a backless dress. Not knowing where to look, Jiang Chen moved his eyes to the side, and said with a smile. Technology is really a great thing. What is great is the kindness of people. Thanks to Yao and Lin Ling, if it weren't for them, I would not have the opportunity to get out of the wheelchair. Walking in front of Jiang Chen, Sun Jiao smiled and stretched out her hand to straighten his collar. Jiang Chen subconsciously stepped back to avoid it, but due to the limited space, the hand still touched his collar. Such an ambiguous move made him a little embarrassed. Facing those flashing eyes, he didn't know what to say for a moment. Where's your sister? Jiang Chen subconsciously glanced at the stairs leading to the second floor. In the virtual reality game cabin in the gym on the third floor. After fixing her slightly messy collar, she didn't move her hands away from Jiang Chen's shoulders, but just put them on his shoulders, looking into his eyes with a smile. Really? You said it wasn't fun, but it was actually quite exciting to play. Jiang Chen changed the subject awkwardly. Yes, isn't it the same for everyone? With a little force on her arms, Sun Jiao quietly closed the distance between her and Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen leaned back against the door of the living room. Looking into her fiery eyes, Jiang Chen took a deep breath. Are you serious? When we were very young, we made a promise that we would marry the same person when we grew up. Staring into Jiang Chen's eyes with a sharp gaze, Sun Jiao smiled like a little devil and pressed her body against him mischievously. Really? But if your sister knew that you thought of this promise first, she wouldn't be happy. Jiang Chen raised his hand to stop her, but his hand was suspended in the air and he didn't know where to put it, so he had to put it down. No, she won't mind, because she's my sister. Holding Jiang Chen's neck, Sun Jiao raised her lips slightly and moved her lips closer. The distance was so close that he could even feel the warm breath on his lips. Time froze at this moment, and Jiang Chen held his breath. However, to his surprise, Sun Jiao did not kiss him. She tilted her head slightly and kissed Jiang Chen on the cheek. You didn't push me away. In an instant, the soft body nimbly separated from Jiang Chen's chest. It's time to shave, brother-in-law. Playfully throwing a kiss, Sun Jiao floated away like a gust of wind. This girl. Looking at her back as she left happily, Jiang Chen reached out and touched the wet marks on his cheeks and the non-existent stubble. He slowly breathed a sigh of relief. After a while, his restless heartbeat calmed down. These days, Sun Jiao has been responsible for testing virtual reality online games. Although she didn't think much of this god-level content at first, she found that this game was unexpectedly interesting as she played it. On the third floor, Jiang Chen walked to the side of the virtual reality game cabin and pressed the wake up button on the shell of the game cabin. This button is equivalent to a doorbell, which can notify the user who is playing the virtual reality game that there is something to find her in the real world. Soon, the indicator light of the game cabin changed from green to yellow, and the shell slowly moved away. Is it fun? Jiang Chen smiled. Well, it's okay. Tell me, what do you want to see me for? Sun Jiao sat up from the game cabin and lifted her hair behind her back. In terms of this hairlifting action, the two sisters are really alike. It's time for dinner, what do you think? Jiang Chen said helplessly. This is not a sloppy look. He was very pleased to see that this god-level continent was so attractive. Even if half of the 3.2 billion netizens in the world were addicted to this game, he would become the richest man in the world. Huh. It's already 6 o'clock. Sun Jiao raised her head to check the time, her cheeks slightly red. Just now, she was exploring the secrets of the elf city. When Jiang Chen called her, she was fighting the boss. Although she was the only one playing the whole game, the IQ of the NPCs was very high. Even if it was a standalone game with the main storyline, it was unexpectedly interesting. However, after hearing that it was temporarily impossible to shy, Jiang Chen lost interest in this game. Now it was Sun Jiao who explored the secrets of this online game alone. That's right, internet addiction girl, we should eat. Jiang Chen teased. What internet addiction girl? I'm here to help you test the game. Humph, don't you thank me. Sun Jiao rolled her eyes at him in dissatisfaction and stretched. The plump curves were more attractive because of her movements. Jiang Chen smiled evilly and put his arm around her waist. How are the test results? Sun Jiao leaned on Jiang Chen with great enjoyment and said lazily. Everything is good, right? You have a familiar smell. Jiang Chen was stunned. Before he could react, Sun Jiao opened her eyes, turned around and sniffed Jiang Chen's chest. Zio Ro. Sun Jiao looked at Jiang Chen suspiciously. Jiang Chen's expression immediately became awkward. Sweat. How to explain this? Chapter 383 Aerospace Science and Technology Research Institute. To be honest, he didn't know how to deal with Sun Jiao's initiative. But thinking that, if he said nothing, it would only deepen the misunderstanding. Under Sun Jiao's questioning eyes, Jiang Chen took a deep breath and confessed what happened at the door. Sun Jiao took the initiative? Are you sure you didn't force her? Sun Jiao looked at Jiang Chen suspiciously. Am I that kind of person? Jiang Chen said with a smile. However, as soon as he said it, he realized that his words seemed to have no persuasive power at all. It was he who took Sun Jiao's first time, although he didn't know at the time that it was her first time. Then what are you going to do to Jiao? Sun Jiao looked at Jiang Chen with a smile. I don't know. Jiang Chen said with some shame. Sun Jiao seemed to have expected Jiang Chen to give this answer and sighed. If you want me to reject her, I can. No, you misunderstood. Contrary to Jiang Chen's expectations, Sun Jiao shook her head. Jiang Chen looked at Sun Jiao's eyes in confusion. If she? Sun Jiao bit her lower lip with difficulty. What if? Jiang Chen leaned his ear over because he couldn't hear. Forget it. RRR. Sure enough, this is still too weird. Sun Jiao covered her suddenly red face, left Jiang Chen confused, and walked away quickly. At the table, Linling was as lively as ever, chewing and bickering with Sun Jiao vaguely. Sun Jiao's seat was arranged directly opposite Jiang Chen. It was the first time she tasted such delicious food, and she praised Yao's cooking skills. Yao, who was praised, smiled shyly as usual, and her two little feet swung happily under the table. Jiang Chen was originally worried that, because of the kiss at the door just now, there would be some embarrassment between him and Sun Jiao, but now it seems that he was just overthinking. However, when he accidentally met her eyes, Jiang Chen could read a meaningful smile from her eyes. After dinner, Jiang Chen went to Jiang Lin's laboratory. He knocked at the door, but it didn't open. Jiang Chen paused for a moment and then took out his ep. In the rocket test site, Jiang Chen muttered to himself, looking at the bright spot on the map. Due to the positioning function of the chip, he can grasp the position of each knight. Of course, out of respect for personal privacy and other factors, he rarely uses this function, unless it is necessary. After determining Jiang Lin's location, Jiang Chen turned and walked towards the target. Rocket test site. Although the name sounds high-end, it is actually an open space surrounded by a cement wall. There are 2 tables on the open space, a workbench covered with electronic parts and a chemical laboratory table with bottles and jars. In addition to these 2 tables, there are also mechanical equipment he brought from the former prosthetic leg boutique, as well as scrap parts that Jiang Chen bought with money. Jiang Chen once promised Jiang Lin that, as long as he completed the task assigned to him, he would fund his dream and help him develop something like a warp engine. Now that the production line of the K1 mechanical exoskeleton has been completed, and the high imitation B-Feng 76 ballistic missile has been completed, he naturally has time to tinker with his ideal. Is this the warp engine? Jiang Chen teased as he looked at the large vortex engine he was tinkering with. Without looking back, Jiang Lin turned the wrench in his hand, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and grinned. It's far from it. This thing is just a simple working fluid propulsion engine. Let alone warp speed, it can't even cross the threshold of non-working fluid. I thought you figured it out. Jiang Chen said. I thought I was about to figure it out. Jiang Lin sighed. In fact, when Jiang Chen first occupied shelter number 27, Jiang Lin applied for a scientific research project from Wangqing. No, strictly speaking, it was not a scientific research project. He just sent a concept map of the warp engine to a certain aerospace expert to verify the feasibility of his conjecture. However, the response he received was disappointing. The expert used various professional knowledge and theories to criticize his concept map. Jiang Lin did not give up. He even took the time to go to Camp 27 in person and confronted the aerospace expert face to face. The result was still disappointing. Seeing that he did not believe it, the aerospace expert used a quantum computer to demonstrate to him in person how ridiculous the technical errors of the warp engine he proposed were. This is like a junior high school student who suddenly thought that he had discovered the secret of the perpetual motion machine and then used the existing knowledge to draw a blueprint that he thought was flawless and presented it to a physics teacher with a university degree. It is undeniable that this scientific research spirit of courage to question is worth promoting. But in the face of science, the truth is unique. After listening to Jiang Lin's story, Jiang Chen was silent for a moment and comforted him softly. At least you have proved that one road is not feasible. But I didn't prove it. Someone proved that my design was wrong in 2091. In the next 80 years, people proved hundreds of wrong ideas one after another, but I didn't know it at all. He laughed at himself, threw the wrench in his hand into the toolbox, and took out a welding gun. Are you frustrated? Jiang Chen asked casually, looking at the flashing sparks. No, otherwise I wouldn't do this thing. Grinning, Jiang Lin stood up and patted the thing he had been tinkering with for almost a week. Walking to his side, Jiang Chen looked at the 3-person high iron lump. What is this? Our M320 rocket engine, a high-end replica plus a smaller version. Jiang Lin couldn't help showing a proud expression on his face as he looked at this work of art that he had completed with his own hands. Although it is the technology of the end of the 21st century, don't you think it is like a work of art? The technology of the end of the 21st century? That's right. According to that aerospace expert, the working fluid propulsion rocket technology was eliminated at the end of the 21st century. The space elevator can easily send the aircraft from the ground to the synchronous orbit. The aircraft that reaches the synchronous orbit can then be propelled by the non-working fluid engine to the moon, or Mars, or even further. Jiang Lin grinned at Jiang Chen. Are you going to start from the most basic? Jiang Chen smiled. But this thing is still very useful to him. Jiang Chen doesn't care whether it is a working fluid or a non-working fluid. It is a black technology in the modern world. Or not to mention, putting it in the modern world, even if it is left in the end of the world, it can be used as a propulsion engine for ballistic missiles. You can think so? Jiang Lin shrugged. How much does this rocket engine cost? Jiang Chen asked casually. Including the cost of solid fuel, the total cost is 20,000 crystals. My goodness, such a rocket engine will eat up the military expenses of 1,000 people. Jiang Chen laughed and scolded. Seeing that Jiang Chen did not have a distressed expression on his face, Jiang Lin also smiled and did not respond. After a pause, Jiang Chen once again looked at the rocket engine in front of him and spoke abruptly. I plan to formally establish the Aerospace Science and Technology Research Institute, and you will be the director. I wonder if you have any ideas. Chapter 384. Starting from picking up trash. Institute of Aerospace Science and Technology. Jiang Lin was stunned. From the shape of his lips, Jiang Chen could tell that he was asking in astonishment, "Why me? Because I think highly of you," Jiang Chen said bluntly. But Jiang Lin wanted to say that compared to those pre-war researchers, his ability was nothing. But Jiang Chen raised his hand to interrupt him. "I know what you want to say, but I just want to hear an answer now." Jiang Lin held his breath. "Okay. Very good. You answered what I wanted to hear." Jiang Chen smiled. Seeing that he was still confused, Jiang Chen paused and continued. "The director of the institute is not necessarily the one with the strongest research ability among a group of scientists. Even though your current knowledge is certainly not as good as those old experts, I believe you can lead that group of capable people to achieve some different results. For example, the small rocket I saw in your store last time, I still remember it clearly," Jiang Chen said with a smile. "Rather than saying that it is still fresh in my memory, it is better to say that it is shocking." In Jiang Chen's original cognition, rockets should be as thick and tall as water towers, but the rocket launched by Jiang Lin to send an observation satellite to low Earth orbit overturned his cognition. If you want that little guy, you don't need to set up a research institute for it. Jiang Lin smiled bitterly. "You are wrong." Jiang Chen shook his head. "It's imagination." "Imagination?" Jiang Lin frowned. "That's right." Jiang Chen took out a subcrystal from his pocket. "Look at this thing. Do you know what it is?" "Subcrystal." "Correct." Jiang Chen smiled and threw the subcrystal into Jiang Lin's hand. But until I told those blueskins, they didn't understand what this thing was. Jiang Lin looked at the dark green crystal in his hand thoughtfully. "The entire Wanhei city, or the entire wasteland. This world is no longer the world we are familiar with. It is impossible to adapt to this wasteland with the old ideas, whether it is survival or scientific research. I need you to use your wild imagination to find a space technology suitable for this wasteland." Staring at Jiang Lin's eyes, Jiang Chen said seriously, "It is much more difficult to build a space elevator in the wasteland than in the real world. Apart from other things, there is a world of difference between the two in terms of the degree of danger of the ocean." Although he has never been to the seaside, Jiang Chen has heard Sun Jiao mention it. For example, Liuding Town is okay, very close to the shore, and basically no marine alien species can be seen. However, once you go from the shallow sea to the deep sea, the danger of alien species will increase exponentially. You know, on the Earth battlefield alone, the nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons that can hit the mainland in wartime only account for a very small part of the total launch. Where did the remaining weapons go? They were not eaten, but intercepted on the sea. Under the interference of multiple factors such as viruses, bacteria, and radiation, the mutations of marine organisms are much more unpredictable than those of terrestrial organisms. However, the base of the space elevator must be built on the sea at the equator. In addition, the space debris between the low Earth orbit and the synchronous orbit almost forms a small planetary ring. These factors undoubtedly increase the difficulty of space travel. Imagination that runs wild? You really gave me a difficult problem. Jiang Lin smiled bitterly again. "If it's not difficult, why would I need you?" Jiang Chen glanced at him. After a moment of silence, Jiang Lin took a deep breath and said, "Can you give me a general direction? NAC, or the aerospace technology you need? What kind of aerospace technology do you focus on?" Jiang Chen thought for a moment. "Start with picking up garbage." "What?" Jiang Lin looked at Jiang Chen dumbfounded. He didn't understand what he meant by this sentence. Jiang Chen stretched out his index finger and pointed to the sky. "You invent a rocket and launch it into low Earth orbit or synchronous orbit. No matter what method you use, I need you to bring down the good stuff flying in the sky for me. Then repair it and launch it back up." "This is really a willful idea." Jiang Lin smiled bitterly for the third time today. "It is technically feasible, right?" "Yes. But generally no one would think of repairing a satellite on the ground, but repair it on the space station, or simply replace it." I said, "Don't look at the current problem with the old way of thinking. Jiang Chen waved his hand. Do we have a space station now? After speaking, Jiang Chen reached out and patted Jiang Lin on the shoulder. Do it well. I believe you can do it. But first, you have to make a little gadget for me. It should be very simple for you. It's that small rocket that can be launched in a foolproof manner. I need you to make 4 of them for me to launch communication satellites. Space junk? No, you don't need to consider that. Just assume that these 4 communication satellites can operate stably under ideal conditions. Just as Jiang Chen and Jiang Lin were discussing the matter of the Aerospace Science and Technology Research Institute, a discussion was also going on in the villa. A discussion about the meaning of life. Xiao, can I ask you something? Sun Jiao squeezed the bubble liquid on her hands and then spread it evenly on her sister's back. When her sister was paralyzed, she was responsible for the cleaning work of bathing. Although Sun Jiao can now bathe by herself, Sun Jiao is still very worried about her bathing by herself. What if this thing suddenly fails or falls down? Wouldn't that be terrible? Her sister was lying in the water unable to move. Sun Jiao couldn't help but feel cold hands and feet just by imagining that situation. She had finally found her only relative in the world, and she didn't want to lose her again. Feeling the cool and soft touch, Xiao squinted her eyes comfortably. After biting her lip, Sun Jiao finally spoke. Do you like Jiang Chen? Xiao was stunned for a moment, then turned around and smiled. Of course, he's a good brother-in-law. No, I mean in the sense of love between men and women. Looking at the smile on her sister's face, Sun Jiao asked seriously. The smile was gradually replaced by a touch of melancholy, and finally, Sun Jiao sighed. Did your brother-in-law tell you everything? Sun Jiao knew what her sister was referring to. What happened at the door a few afternoons ago. Sun Jiao thought Sun Jiao already knew what happened in her bedroom that day. The two of them misunderstood each other very cleverly and self-righteously. Sun Jiao nodded. Are you going to blame me? Sun Jiao lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. The bubbles in the bathtub reflected her depressed face and her beautiful figure. No, I just want to know what you think. Sun Jiao hugged her sister from behind, closed her eyes, and said softly. Feeling her sister's warm embrace, Sun Jiao suddenly felt that she was very selfish. She couldn't tell whether she was in love with Jiang Chen or just in love with the person her sister liked. Because of her obsession with the sense of guilt that made her heart beat faster, she did things she shouldn't have done several times. However, as she thought about this, a wave of bitterness welled up in her heart. It was him who took her virginity first, so why did I have to bear this guilt? She didn't know what emotion drove her to speak. Is it okay, even if it's a very willful idea? Yeah. Sun Jiao rested her chin on her sister's shoulder and said softly. Sun Jiao moved forward, turned around silently, and faced her sister. She lowered her head and bit her lower lip lightly. Suddenly, she leaned close to her sister's ear and spoke her heart out. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385 War Bonds Issue. Early in the morning, the bank was crowded with people. Merchants, mercenaries, hunters, and even scavengers all gathered at the door of the bank. People were in high spirits, and their faces were filled with excitement. Led by the security forces wearing the uniforms of the 1st Legion, people lined up in a long queue, looking forward to the opening of the 6th block bank at 8 o'clock. To ask why people are so enthusiastic, it has to start with the wonderful speech yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, in the past 21 years, we have proved our prosperity with our own hands. Standing on the podium in front of the Parliament building, Jiang Chen shouted to all the people in the audience with an impassioned voice. Whether it was being abandoned by the pack at the beginning, or facing the alien tide alone, or the bacteria that affected the whole city last year, and then the sad betrayal, he slowly lowered his tone. But we won. He clenched his fists, raised his voice, and said in an inflammatory tone, we use the new order to raise the middle finger to the dignitaries who abandoned us. We used high walls and guns To block zombies and alien species, we used tank tracks to eliminate the source of the plague that spread throughout the city, and we used the charter of the parliament to punish traitors. Then we ushered in the light. He slowed down his tone again and cast a solemn and proud look at the crowd. The audience held their breath. But just as we were singing praises for the prosperity, a sad thing happened. I believe most people have heard about it. Our compatriots in Jiao City, the warriors who resisted the mutant invasion, finally fell. And now, the group of barbarians in the west are waving clubs and shouting at us, "Look, we have captured your little neighbor and cut off his balls. Are you scared? Haha, we will do the same to you soon. Now, tell me, can you tolerate this insult? Can you tolerate it?" There was no response from the audience, but Jiang Chen could read from the faces of the people in the front row that they could not. Taking a deep breath, he spoke again. "It's too small. Compared to the entire wasteland, it's not even a grain. But we have the obligation to nurture it and let it shine on a wider area. Yes, it is the light we have seen, the light of order. And the first step to accomplish this great cause is to use the entrails of those bastards to lubricate the tracks of our tanks. Then, liberate our compatriots." His voice rose from low to high, completely igniting the emotions of all the onlookers. "Long live the 6th district." People shouted in response to his roar. "Long live Nak. Kill those damn eunuchs." Raising his hand to signal people to be quiet, he turned the manuscript to the next page. "Now, on behalf of the parliament, I will read the resolution that the 6th district will declare war on the mutants entrenched inside 7. After speaking, he looked at Chunan, who was sitting on the side seat. As an executive officer, Chunan represents the attitude of the military government. According to the charter of the 6th district, the military government has a veto over bills reviewed by the parliament. Of course, this was just a formality. After all, this impassioned speech was arranged by the military government. Chunan stood up and looked at the people in the audience with a solemn expression. "Permission." A deafening cheer broke out from the audience. In this boiling public opinion, Jiang Chen took advantage of the opportunity to read out the resolution of issuing war bonds and the conscription bill. This performance went much more smoothly than expected. Outside the window, there was a dark mass of people, and the line stretched from the bank door to the door of the parliament building. This is the parliament building, and the bank is located next to this building. Chunan and Jiang Chen sat at the tea table by the window. There was a color-printed newspaper on the table in front of them, and the cover was printed with the impassioned speech. Newspapers have only become popular some time ago. People are gossipy animals. In the era without the internet, newspapers can just meet people's needs in this regard. In addition to occasionally announcing the resolutions of the 6th District Council, these newspapers usually also publish interesting survivors' deeds, hunting experiences of alien species, job information or advertisements. The bank will open in 5 minutes. Jiang Chen squinted at the wall clock and looked out the window again. He didn't need to queue up with those ordinary people. As a big capitalist in the 6th block, he had already bought his share before the public issuance of bonds. It seems that people are full of enthusiasm for the war in 4 months. Chunan said with a smile. It was 8 o'clock, and the service staff of the parliament building brought a basket of hot buns and 2 cups of freshly ground soy milk to the 2. No one is interested in war, but they won't go against the shiny Asian crystal. Well, a hearty breakfast. Jiang Chen reached out and grabbed the bun and took a big bite. Having lived here for almost 20 years, he knew very well what people cheered for yesterday. It was not for the liberation of compatriots, but for the mercenary orders, arms orders, and jobs that the war would bring. That's right, Chunan said with a smile, and also reached out to the steamer. Breakfast at the parliament building is provided free of charge by the military government. The food here has always been the best in the entire 6th block. The steamed buns stuffed with fresh meat and hot soy milk are not an exaggeration to call them delicacies in this wasteland. How did you come up with the idea of using mutant steel to issue war bonds? Jiang Chen swallowed the food in his mouth and looked at the people outside the window who were frantically rushing to the purchase point and couldn't help asking. I got inspiration from the dividend system of your first expedition and then made a slight change. For example, the steel that was in short supply in the 6th block was used as a guarantee for dividends. Chunan chewed the food slowly and said in a casual tone. The subcrystals brought from the last expedition ignited the boiler of the factory, and this expedition will bring the raw materials needed for production. How much steel do the mutants have on hand? According to the intelligence feedback from the reconnaissance team, the estimated reserves of C-shaped steel are more than 200,000 tons. Fuck, are they guarding an iron mine? Jiang Chen couldn't help but curse. These are all finished C-shaped steels, not iron ore, that needs to be refined. It's not an iron mine. According to reliable information, it's an underground resource library. It packs strategic reserve materials. I just don't know how those materials got into the hands of those monsters. But it doesn't matter. The steel will be ours this fall. Outside the window, the queue has begun to move slowly. The bank opened its doors, and people took their identity certificates and squeezed towards the salesperson who sold bonds. Retracting his gaze from the window, Jiang Chen looked at Chunan and asked, "Why don't you earn this subcrystal yourself? Don't tell me he is short of this money now." The he Jiang Chen was referring to was naturally Jiang Chen. Food trade brings in nearly 1 million subcrystals in profit every month. As the largest shareholder in the food business, Jiang Chen would rather believe that the bank will go bankrupt than believe that Jiang Chen will be short of subcrystal. It's not that short of money, but doesn't Councillor Zhao understand that if you want to dig and harvest wheat, you have to plant the wheat ears first? Chunan said with a smile. Jiang Chen was slightly stunned and then burst into laughter. It's our honor that the marshal has such foresight. It's my honor too. Holding the soy milk cup in his hand, Chunan smiled and raised his glass. Chapter 386 Fixed Wing Aircraft. In the holographic conference room, Chunan's holographic projection stood opposite the long table and reported to Jiang Chen the situation on the first day of the war bond issuance. Including the pre-sale part, a total of 2 million subcrystals of war bonds were sold out on the same day. In addition, the conscription work has also been carried out to 30%, and it is expected to be completed within a week. It's like picking up money. Jiang Chen couldn't help but admire. Public credibility came in handy, and the people rushed to buy. No. Public credibility is only related to people's belief that we will pay. And it's not public credibility that prompts people to buy war bonds, but because they support this war. Jiang Chen leaned back in the boss chair and said with a smile. Because it's profitable? Chunan teased. On the one hand, Jiang Chen smiled. Chunan didn't ask what the other side was, just smiled and flipped the documents in his hand. Is this the only thing you need to report to me? Jiang Chen asked. No, there is another good news. Chunan said. Oh. Remember that Ouiji. The order you placed with him has now been completed. When Jiang Chen first occupied the 6th block, he promised a certain degree of benefits to the 5 council members who surrendered, including Jiang Chen's food business, Liu Yun's coastline company's inner circle reconstruction project, and Ouiji's Starry Sky Technology company's pre-war technology recycling, and his 51 development project. It was completed so quickly? Jiang Chen looked at Chunan with some surprise. Originally, in his expectation, this research and development would take at least a year, but he didn't expect them to complete it so quickly. Yes, they have completed it. Chunan nodded. Arrange their technicians to hand over the production process related documents to our factory, and when the helicopter is successfully put into production, the remaining 120,000 subcrystals will be paid to them. Jiang Chen said immediately, with a face full of joy that could not be concealed. The completion of the development of the IS-51 means that NAC will gain the ability to produce helicopters, completely breaking the monopoly of Liuding Town on aviation power. And with the industrial capacity of NAC, Liuding Town, which is on the deck, will be left behind by them in no time. Okay. Ouiji also asked me if you have any new research projects for him. Chunan nodded. Of course, ask him if he is interested in cooperative research projects. If he is interested, talk to him about developing fighter jets. Chunan was stunned and repeated it as if to confirm. Fighter jet? Yes. Fixed wing aircraft, the kind that can drop 200 kilogram bombs on the enemy's head. Jiang Chen said. But if I may be frank, the difficulty of developing fixed wing aircraft is probably much more difficult than helicopters. And in terms of combat effectiveness in the wasteland, Fighter jets are not necessarily much better than helicopters, Chunan persuaded cautiously. Now the production process of the IS-51 has just been developed, and the development of fighter jets has not even started the trial production line. According to Chunan's idea, it is better to continue along the helicopter path, using the IS-51 as a template and continuously strengthening its technology. Fighter jet. The combat radius of NAC is only a few dozen kilometers at most. Does it need a fighter jet? However, Chunan did not know that Jiang Chen planned to bring this fighter jet to the real world. Look further ahead. The enemy in front of us is not just that little mutant. The Northern Union District has always had ill intentions towards Wanghai City, a Fengshu treasure land. Look further ahead. Look at the entire Pan-Asia, or even the other side of the ocean. No one knows what is there, and what the people there are thinking. Since I will have to face those things sooner or later, I hope I will not be unprepared by then. So now, do you still think that developing fixed-wing aircraft is unnecessary? You are right, Marshal. Chunan answered quickly. Whether it is right or not, it would be a **** to talk back. Jiang Chen nodded. Very good, that's it. After ending the call with Chunan, Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair and stretched. I'm so tired. Miss Staff Officer, how about massaging my shoulders for me? Excuse me, this is the job of a secretary. Han Junhe, standing in the corner of the conference room, folded his arms and said coldly. Isn't the staff officer the secretary of the marshal? Jiang Chen said in a joking tone. Your point of view is very novel, but I will reject it. That's a pity. Jiang Chen exaggeratedly made a disappointed expression, stood up with the help of the handrail, and walked towards the door of the conference room happily. If you want to equip the army with fighter jets, I suggest you form an air force formation that is independent of the army. Han Junhe said calmly. It's too early. Those scientists haven't even made a model of the toy for me. Jiang Chen laughed, and his voice gradually faded away in the empty corridor. The so-called marshal does not have to stay in the office on standby in a formal manner. It is enough to appear in front of people when they need it. As for those chores, they can be thrown to the staff. This is Jiang Chen's interpretation of his current position, not an excuse for his laziness. In summary, after sitting in the office for half an hour without doing anything, Jiang Chen told Han Junhe, come to me if you have anything, and then left the office in a chic manner. It is now the beginning of June. Jiang Chen thought he would have to go back in a few days, so he wanted to spend more time with his beloved. Crossing the square in front of the community center, and heading north for 200 meters, he reached the training ground. There was a neat row of trucks parked at the entrance, as well as some jagged pandas still in service. Women stood here waiting for their husbands, because they would soon be heading to the front. When Jiang Chen passed by the entrance, he saw a dark mass of people in the training ground. The first army is about to set off, and Cheng Weiguo is making the final mobilization for the soldiers. As soon as the mobilization meeting is over, they will get on the bus from the door and go directly to the front line. Just yesterday, the Marshal's office has passed the request for declaration of war on mutants, proposed by the 6th District Council, and now the entire NAC has entered a state of war. Although the mutants have definitely not received the news, it is absolutely right to complete the deployment of border troops as soon as possible. In the crowd, Jiang Chen accidentally caught a glimpse of an acquaintance. It was Zhao Jixi, Cheng Weiguo's wife. She used to be a cook in the cafeteria, but later, because the cafeteria was placed under the management of the logistics department, she joined the logistics department. Jiang Chen vaguely remembered this person. In the beginning, she was responsible for the meals of more than 30 people in the base. If there is any change from her now to before, it is probably her stomach. Noticing Jiang Chen, Zhao Jixi smiled slightly. Mr. Marshal, long time no see. Jiang Chen smiled and looked at her bulging belly in surprise. How many months? 3 months already. Talking about the baby in her belly, her face was filled with a happy smile. 3 months already. Cheng Weiguo, this guy, he's almost going to be a father, and didn't even tell me. Jiang Chen laughed and scolded. You're the marshal, how dare I bother you with such a small matter? Zhao Jixi said very modestly. Jiang Chen was slightly stunned, but soon came out of his daze, and smiled at her. That's right. After a pause, Jiang Chen continued. Take care of yourself, and give my regards to old Sheng. Well, I will. Zhao Jixi smiled and said goodbye to Jiang Chen. For a leader, it is undoubtedly precious to be able to win the respect of his subordinates. The distance caused by the difference in respect is also inevitable. After all, except for Zhao Guoping, who was a bandit, the people he promoted were not good at scheming and flattering. In other words, am I still lacking a bootliker around me? Jiang Chen sneered at this idea that suddenly popped up in his mind. No matter how many people like that there are, they are still a bit boring. Are you lacking friends? Or good buddies? Jiang Chen fell into silence. The formation not far away had begun to move. Soldiers holding rifles boarded the trucks in batches and said their final goodbyes to their families at the door. At this moment, he caught a glimpse of a sleeping baby in a woman's arms. The ignorant sleeping face and the mother's happy smile were like a picture scroll, deeply imprinted in Jiang Chen's eyes. It was that smile that brought some comfort to his heart. Smiling, Jiang Chen turned and walked away. Chapter 387 Night. The night gradually deepened. Jiang Chen leaned against the window, holding a wine glass in his hand, staring at the swaying branches outside the window in a daze. The orange-yellow wine in the glass swayed, reflecting a blurry face and a blurry moon. What are you looking at? At some point, Sun Jiao gently walked behind him. I don't know, maybe it's our backyard. Jiang Chen didn't turn around, just staring at the buds on the branches that would never sprout. In the courtyard was a path lined with low trees, and behind it was the swimming pool where he used to store gold. Of course, the swimming pool is now covered by a dome in the shape of an egg, which is Lin Ling's masterpiece. He still remembers that he once enjoyed a high-tech simulated sunbath there. Are you tired? Rarely showing her considerate side, Sun Jiao gently hugged Jiang Chen from behind and rested her cheek on her broad shoulders. Feeling the softness behind him, Jiang Chen smiled a little tiredly and drank the wine in the glass. Occasionally, Jiang Chen poured himself another glass and answered irrelevantly. But Sun Jiao seemed to understand what he said and whispered behind him. Running back and forth between two worlds must be tiring. A little. After refilling the glass, Jiang Chen shook the crystal clear wine, stared at the beautiful face through the layer of orange, and continued to talk to himself. Different environment, different people, different ways of doing things, different values. I feel like I have lived two lives. Although this ability has brought me endless wealth and pulled me out of the trough of life, I have no right to complain, but I don't know whether this is lucky or unfortunate. Until a few hours ago, I suddenly realized that I didn't have a single friend here. In fact, from the very beginning, before he had a relationship with Sun Jiao, he had no intention of bringing order here. No matter how chaotic it was here, he could live a rich life over there. No, he might even live a more comfortable life than now. A little tipsy, a wisp of cool breeze blew by, awakening his reverie. Except you. Jiang Chen added. I'm not your friend either, I'm your wife. Sun Jiao bit Jiang Chen's earlobe in dissatisfaction. Ahem, sorry, I'm a little drunk. Putting the wine glass aside, Jiang Chen propped himself on the windowsill with one hand and wiped his face with the other. Neither is Yao. I know. Then why don't you eat her? Sun Jiao's pearly teeth loosened Jiang Chen's earlobe and asked teasingly. Although he almost ate the cute little rabbit many times, he didn't do it in the end. Is it because she looks too young? I'm afraid that's not the main reason. Sun Jiao is his first woman, and he cares about her feelings. Jiang Chen didn't answer, but just put his right hand on the hand around his waist. Because of me? Yeah. Jiang Chen replied softly. Didn't I say I don't care? Besides, you eat a lot outside. Sun Jiao rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen. Hearing this, Jiang Chen's expression was a little embarrassed. You know everything? Han Junhe, right? Sun Jiao pouted. Why do you think it's her? Jiang Chen asked in confusion. He originally thought that she was referring to the diplomat from Liuding Town. As God knows, Han Junhe is still a virgin, and he really hasn't discussed more in-depth issues with her. Although he was a bit shameless, compared with people of the same status, he has pushed away very few people. Because I happened to see her eyes looking at your back once. My intuition tells me that it is not just the look of a subordinate looking at a superior. Hearing this, Jiang Chen smiled and sighed. You think too much. She has no feelings. It's difficult to explain. It seems to be called the spiritual political commissar. It's like after opening the Washan, right? Sun Jiao heard Jiang Chen mention the second level hidden gene code ability he opened. Yes, it's probably that feeling. Jiang Chen nodded. Then after you opened the Washan, did you have feelings for me? Sun Jiao asked. Jiang Chen was stunned. He carefully recalled the battle when he first opened the Washan, the life and death battle with the lead mutant. If there is really no emotion, shouldn't the wisest choice be to abandon Sun Jiao and retreat? With the speed of mutants, it is impossible to catch up with the T3 power armor. Maybe, Jiang Chen said uncertainly, but soon laughed and forcibly interrupted the topic. Ahem, why do we have to change the topic to? Gently closing her eyes, Sun Jiao said in Jiang Chen's ear. For me, the only lucky thing in this life is that I met you here that day. Jiang Chen was slightly stunned. Sun Jiao continued, sometimes I'm really scared, afraid that you will suddenly feel tired one day and don't want to come back here. I'm sorry for making you worry. Sun Jiao's index finger gently touched Jiang Chen's lips and smiled. No need to apologize. Gently holding the delicate hand, Jiang Chen fell into silence. After a long time, he turned around and held her in his arms. Remember the day we first met? Do you mean when I tied you to the chair, or when we fucked all the way from the restaurant to the bedroom? Sun Jiao said charmingly, holding Jiang Chen's neck. I mean the way you licked the can. Jiang Chen said jokingly. PFFT. Sun Jiao covered her mouth and laughed out loud and rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen unhappily. It's a bit cold, Jiang Chen said softly. Although it's already June, in this land covered with radioactive dust, hot and cold are usually random events. With a blush on her cheeks, Sun Jiao understood Jiang Chen's hint. Well, let's go. The door was closed a crack. Behind the door, there was a petite figure. A coat was tightly held in front of her chest by her little hands. Looking at the empty window, Yao's eyes were a little blurred, and her little mouth was slightly pouted. Are you stupid? Linling sighed and said, walking behind her without knowing when. Her voice startled Yao, and she looked at Linling with dissatisfaction with her pouting lips. If we don't make a move, there will be more and more competitors, Linling said with a smirk. For example, you. Yao buried her head. Why do you drag me into this? I mean Sun Jiao. Last time, she didn't kiss at the door. Linling's face flushed, and she explained incoherently. However, the more she explained, the weaker her voice became. Yao buried her head and walked 2 steps, stopping beside Linling. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that to you. It's okay. I should apologize. Maybe you are right, but I don't know what I'm thinking. Linling murmured in a low voice, reaching out to hug Yao. She admitted that her motive for instigating her good friend just now was despicable. The silver white hair was intertwined with the black hair, and the 2 little animals snuggled together, as if they were keeping each other warm. Standing at the corner of the corridor, and looking at the 2 girls, Sun Jiao sighed softly. But soon, a happy arc appeared at the corner of her mouth, and she turned around and walked towards the bathroom. Chapter 388 Sisters. The next morning, a ray of sunlight passed over the window eaves and sprinkled on the tip of Jiang Chen's nose. His eyebrows twitched, and Jiang Chen opened his hazy eyes. Almost at the same time, a sore feeling surged from the back of his head. He stayed drunk again. After taking a shower yesterday, Sun Jiao accompanied him to drink a lot of wine. As for what she did after getting him drunk, you don't need to think about it. Taking a deep breath of the morning air, Jiang Chen was confused and wanted to reach out and rub his sore facial muscles. But at this time, he found that his right hand seemed to be entangled by something soft. He was slightly stunned, and then Jiang Chen moved his left hand again, but found that his left hand was also entangled. Now, even if Jiang Chen was slow, he realized that something seemed to be wrong. Waking up from his confusion, he tilted his head and immediately understood the situation at the moment. Well, you got up so early. A lazy voice sounded in his ears. Sun Jiao, who was not afraid at all, did not let go of the arm holding Jiang Chen, but adjusted her sleeping position like a cat that had eaten enough. The messy sheets and water stains on the quilt, as well as the pillows that flew to the ground, gave us a glimpse of the beauty of last night. But that was not the problem. The problem was that there seemed to be more than two cats. Jiang Chen twisted his stiff neck and looked at the lovely girl lying on his left. "Good morning, brother-in-law." Sun Jiao greeted with a smile. "This must be a dream." Jiang Chen muttered to himself and closed his eyes again. However, it turned out that this was not a dream. Although the memory of last night was a little fragmented in Jiang Chen's mind because of the wine, but after sleeping until noon, he still recalled what happened last night. First, he and Sun Jiao held hands, but then inexplicably became three people holding hands. Wrapping the cup in front of her chest, Sun Jiao confessed to Jiang Chen the whole story of everything that happened last night. Sun Jiao also knelt beside the bed and confessed her true feelings. It turned out that when Sun Jiao was bathing a few days ago, Jiao had confessed her feelings to her. After hearing her sister's inner thoughts, although she was a little hesitant in her heart, she still expressed her understanding of her feelings. At this time, the problem that had been bothering Sun Jiao came to her mind again. Jiang Chen had never eaten Yao, and she was very worried whether she could keep him here just by her words. She knew very well that in her opinion, let alone the Marshal of Nak, even the Emperor of the entire wasteland would not be as good as the civilians living in that world. Then she thought of her sister and the feelings her sister had confessed to her that day. Although it might be a bit despicable to do so, she really hoped that he could stay here. At least he would not suddenly disappear one day. For this reason, she planned to give him more things that were hard to give up. Anyway, this was Jiao's idea, wasn't it? She comforted herself in this way, and then took Jiao with her last night on her own initiative. Lying on the bed, Jiao looked into Jiang Chen's eyes and asked a little aggrievedly, "Do you hate me?" "No, but..." Jiang Chen smiled bitterly. "It's okay if you don't hate me." Jiao's face instantly broke into a brilliant smile, just like the weather in May. Jiang Chen was caught by this dazzling smile and stared blankly at her as the sheets slipped off her body. At this time, Sun Jiao hugged Jiang Chen from behind and said with a hint of jealousy, "You have to thank me. Besides, I'm the staple food." Jiang Chen's brain was a little confused due to the excessive stimulation, and he forgot the words for a while. "That's right, sister is a staple food." Jiao smiled lightly and pecked his lips lightly. Jiang Chen felt something in his chest shattered. Well, that thing seems to be called moral integrity. Spring the nights are short and the sun rises high, and from then on, the king will not attend the court early. Although this poem is used to describe Yang Giffey, Jiang Chen always feels that it seems to be somewhat appropriate when applied to himself. Jiang Chen walked into the community center refreshed and sat down at his desk. Han Junhua, who was standing in front of the office window, saw Jiang Chen coming and walked over with her arms folded. Without asking why Jiang Chen didn't come in the morning, she skillfully took out 2 file bags from the table and placed them in the middle of the desk. "This morning, Lu Huosheng, the head of the administrative department, sent me 3 engineering concept drawings of the marshal's mansion." Jiang Chen opened the briefcase that Han Junhua pointed to and took out a document and 3 graphene cards from it. The graphene card showed a 3D view model. The 3 marshals' mansions looked different, and he couldn't say which one was better. "What do you think?" Jiang Chen asked, placing the 3 cards on the table. "I have no opinion on the appearance, but it's better to make it as sturdy as possible. In any case, the command center is the focus of enemy units," Han Junhua said. Jiang Chen glanced at the document, thought for a moment, and wrote down Han Junhua's suggestion in the suggestion column. "Okay, then this one." He picked the card that looked the most pleasing to the eye and stuffed it back into the briefcase with the document. As for the 2 cards that were not selected, he threw them into the garbage bag. Then, Jiang Chen reached out to another briefcase. He unbuttoned it, and there was a small pile of documents inside. Logistics Minister Wang Qing also came this morning and submitted a proposal for colony expansion. Specifically, the Shengxiang town colony is preparing to expand in the direction of Dianshan Lake. and is expected to reclaim 15,000 mu of land to plant kamad trees and mutant fruit. She asked me to tell you that, if this proposal can be launched, we will become the largest supplier of kamad resin and mutant fruit in the 6th district. Han Junho relayed. 15,000 mu? Let me see. It has expanded to the side of Dianshan Lake. There will be a battle with mutants in the fall. Is it okay to reclaim wasteland on the front line? Pulling out a map from the file, Jiang Chen frowned and looked at the wasteland circled by the red box. There is no problem in strategy. We are the attacking party, and the focus of the battlefield is mainly in Jaya City. If nothing unexpected happens, the mutants will not have a chance to touch Shengxiang town. As for the economy, that is not my area of expertise, so I will not cross the line. Han Junho replied briefly. I'm not good at it either, but since the strategy is correct, I believe in the talents of my men. Jiang Chen smiled and signed the agreement. Calm resin is the main raw material for producing plastics in the wasteland. It is indispensable for everything from mechanical exoskeletons to rifles. Han Junho watched Jiang Chen silently as he stuffed the signed document back into his briefcase. Are you ready to get off work? Han Junho asked when he saw Jiang Chen getting up and preparing to leave. I have to go find Du Yankang for something. If Lu Huasheng and Wang King come, please give these 2 briefcases to them for me. Stopping at the door, Jiang Chen turned around and instructed. Okay. Han Junho folded his arms and nodded. Thank you then. Jiang Chen said with a smile. Han Junho was slightly stunned, then shook his head. You're welcome. Chapter 389 Virtual Helmet Sample. At the end of the corridor on the first floor of the community center, there is a large office converted from a conference room. The discussion voices floating out of the half-open door never stop, and it seems that the work inside is very busy. Although the reform some time ago caused most departments to be almost disbanded and reorganized, this department alone has not changed. A sign with words engraved on it hangs crookedly on the door panel. God level continent game development department. At this moment, the office converted from this conference room is busy. The mission script has been completed. Leo Zhang, have you finished the text? It's done. Wait a minute. I'll pack it and send it to you. Our team has finished the NPC models numbered C10087 to C10129. The rest is from here to here, a total of 17 AIs that need to be manually input. You guys have a look. The conference room is divided into separate offices by more than a dozen door panels. More than 50 programmers are struggling in front of holographic computers with deep eye bags, further improving this virtual reality online game. Sitting in front of the holographic computer, Du Yankang's eyes swept over the lines of code. As a game director, he did not need to type the code himself like a programmer. He only needed to review the results of each working group and provide guidance on the general direction of game development. This job sounds simple, but it is not easy to do. He alone reviewed the work of more than 50 people, and his hard work could be seen from the bags under his eyes. However, he did not hate this hard work, but rather enjoyed it. Before the war, he was just a senior engineer and had never served as a game director. However, he did not expect that fate would play a big joke on him. He got the position he had dreamed of after the war. He had not slept for 24 hours. After reviewing the last line of code, he was about to lie on the table for a nap, but he happened to see an unexpected person at the door. Seeing Jiang Chen appear at the door, Du Yankang's eyes lit up, and he quickly got up to greet him. After a simple greeting, Jiang Chen got straight to the point. Don't be so nervous, I'm just here to take a look. By the way, is the server I asked you to debug last time ready? It's ready. Du Yankang nodded with a smile. This honest programmer is not good at flattering people, but just keeps smiling. Although it looks a bit funny, Jiang Chen still likes this kind of innocent person. Then take me to see it quickly. No problem. Please follow me. Du Yankang bowed respectfully and then led Jiang Chen to the utility room next door. The utility room is quite programmer-like, with cardboard boxes piled together randomly. Du Yankang's face was a little embarrassed when he saw the messy furnishings, and he scratched his head. It's okay, I don't care how you put these things, just show me the sample of the helmet. Oh, okay, Yang Kang smiled embarrassedly and hurriedly walked to the pile of cardboard boxes and started to look through them. He moved away a few cardboard boxes full of discarded documents and dragged out a cardboard box containing 5 virtual reality helmets from the back. Looking at the helmet in the box, Jiang Chen felt an indescribable excitement. If the big ships and cannons are the romance of men, then the virtual reality helmet is probably the romance of all the internet addicts. Jiang Chen asserted that any game enthusiast who has read online novels or played next generation online games or standalone games has never imagined that one day he will be able to wear a virtual helmet and kill all the enemies in the virtual online game of 0 and 1. Marshall, you are not a soldier, just call me boss. Okay boss. Yang Kang smiled shyly and scratched the back of his head. This thing, do you see if it is the one you want? Jiang Chen reached out and took out a helmet from the box, holding it in his hand and observing it carefully. The ink-colored glass mirror and the blue-black polyethylene shell looked like a sleek motorcycle helmet. A scaly tail hangs from the back of the helmet, which is about the same length as the neck. It can be connected to the spinal nerves through the microelement circuit and use this as a port to interfere with the brain. After weighing it up and down, the weight is about 1-2 kilograms. Slightly heavier than a motorcycle helmet. But it doesn't matter. When the helmet is turned on, the user will enter a deep sleep state, and it is estimated that not many people will choose to play this game standing up. How much molybdenum metal does a virtual helmet consume? Jiang Chen asked casually. If you don't consider material loss, it's about 300 grams. Yang Kang answered with certainty. 300 grams. Jiang Chen pinched his chin and fell into deep thought. In this way, 1 ton of molybdenum ore can produce at least 3,000 virtual helmets. When we go back and solve the molybdenum ore problem, we can mass produce this thing. Of course, there is no rush for this matter. Before the official launch, Jiang Chen plans to find a few volunteers in the real world to test it internally and make sure to adjust this game to the best possible perfection. After all, this is an epoch-making online game. The cultural acceptance of people in the 22nd century is still different from that of the 21st century. He doesn't want to lower the quality of the game because of carelessness. In order to make 100 samples, the logistics department even dismantled a culture chamber for us to gather enough molybdenum. Why not use the culture chamber as the platform for this game? Compared with this antique, the advanced culture chamber is much better in both operation capability and comfort. Oh, you dismantled the incubator? What a loss. Jiang Chen cursed in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. Running ability? Will it lag when playing games with this virtual helmet? It won't lag, but it won't be reflected in games with simple physical rules. Yang Kang waved his hand and said, that's fine. This kind of fantasy-themed game doesn't need highly simulated physical rules. Don't dismantle the incubator. I only need these 100 helmets for the time being. Jiang Chen said. Yang Kang nodded, and seeing that Jiang Chen didn't intend to change his mind, he didn't say anything more. He was just giving Jiang Chen a suggestion, so he wouldn't argue with his boss about right and wrong. That's it. I'll have someone take away these 100 helmets in the small server in the corner later. By the way, I almost forgot. Have you made a confidentiality mechanism for the helmets? Jiang Chen patted his head and asked hurriedly. It's done. The dense lead layer can prevent projection scanning. In addition, if someone tries to forcibly disassemble the helmet, the built-in safety circuit will be forced to overload and burn all the graphene circuit boards and chips in the helmet. Those who try to disassemble it can only get a pile of scrap metal. But does anyone really need this antique technology? Yang Kang muttered doubtfully in his heart. Jiang Chen patted his shoulder happily. Haha, good job. You can go find Wang King later. All game developers can get 50 subcrystals. This is a reward for your hard work. Thank you, boss. Yang Kang said excitedly. 50 subcrystals. This is equivalent to the basic salary of an Aknite for 1 month. At this moment, he no longer has any doubts about the boss's decision. Who cares? As long as the boss is happy. Chapter 390 Hangzhou Merchants Association. It was a nuclear bomb crater, or a circular lake. The lake's surface emitted a pale blue fluorescence under the night sky, like a sea of fireflies. Beautiful but ominous. The lake water was very clear, but as sticky as jelly, and even a breeze occasionally blew over without causing any ripples. In the center of the lake, there was a small mountain floating. It was a small mountain made of dark red pieces of meat. The blood vessels densely covered on its surface were wriggling frequently, sending nutrients to the whole body. The huge body relied on the dense tentacles of the chassis like jellyfish tentacles, like a giant tree rooted in the lake. A giant tree made of flesh and blood. On its top grew a cilia as thick as a forearm and about 10 meters long. And on the top of the cilia, there grew a glowing flesh bubble. It was like an antenna with a bright lamp hanging. The faint fluorescence flickered, as if it was listening to something, or calling for something. No one has been here for 20 years, and no one can walk here. This is a forbidden area for life. However, there are still a few alien species that can approach this place. For example, the Deathclaw is one of them. Perhaps guided by the faint light, a Deathclaw slowly approached the nuclear bomb crater. It shook its thorny tail stupidly and clamped a dying survivor with its claws. The survivor had an ugly face, and his festering skin had deformed folds. The high-intensity radiation had cancerized every cell in his body. The swollen lips moved slowly, mumbling inaudible words. With the trembling of facial muscles, large pieces of dandruff fell off his face. His face was miserable, but its face was solemn. As if performing some kind of mysterious ceremony, the Deathclaw held him high. Amid the terrified wailing of the prey, it reverently threw him into the lake. The sticky ripples spread out and soon engulfed the figure of the man. As usual, the Deathclaw turned around and left after offering tribute. However, at this moment, something strange happened. The viscous lake water suddenly rolled up, and large bubbles surged from the bottom of the lake, just like boiling water. And the survivor who sank to the bottom of the lake was the last piece of firewood to ignite the lake. The Deathclaw turned his head suddenly, and his eyes, as big as copper bells, narrowed into a slit, wandering in surprise between the rising light and the restless flesh. At the same time, in a villa dozens of kilometers away, Linling, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly opened her eyes. Her breathing was still even, as if she was still sleeping soundly. However, the two bloody red spots in her pupils were so conspicuous in the darkness. It was already mid-June, and Jiang Chen planned to return to the real world in the near future. Everything in the wasteland had been arranged, and the last batch of recruits also went to the front line yesterday. It didn't matter whether he was sitting in the office in the base at this moment. Sun Jiao, the wife of the marshal, would arrange the chores for him, and Linling would inform him through the four-dimensional transmitter if there were any major events. But he still had to go to the office today, as an envoy from Hangzhou wanted to see him. Yawning, Linling rubbed her sleepy eyes and walked out of the room. Stayed up late. Jiang Chen, who was standing in the living room and about to go out, asked with a smile. No, I just don't know why I'm so sleepy. Well, I'm a little hungry. Linling rubbed her flat belly and walked towards the kitchen in a daze. I don't know what happened, but Linling has been looking listless these days. Jiang Chen initially thought she was sick, but Linling told him responsibly that cyborgs don't get sick. Jiang Chen glanced at her back in confusion, but said nothing, and pushed the door open and walked out. The sky was particularly clear today, perhaps because the monsoon from the Pacific Ocean blew away the radioactive dust that was like a dark cloud covering the wasteland. When he arrived at the office, he saw a man in a suit waiting in front of his desk. When he saw Jiang Chen, his eyes lit up, and he stretched out his right hand and greeted him with a smile. Jiang Chen also extended his hand in a friendly manner and shook hands with him. Kan, president of the Hangzhou Merchants Association. The man shook Jiang Chen's hand vigorously and introduced himself in a friendly manner. Judging from the calluses on his hands, this guy doesn't look like a businessman at all. Although he has never been to Hangzhou, Jiang Chen has heard of the name of this association. There are many merchants in the 6th block who are from Hangzhou. The small gadgets such as electronic products, tobacco and adhesives they bring are selling well here. Most of the merchants from Hangzhou belong to the Hangzhou Merchants Association, an organization of guild nature. The ability to integrate so many merchants is enough to show that the strength of this organization should not be underestimated. However, there is a Jia city between Hangzhou and Wanghei city. The distance of 150 kilometers is already very far in the wasteland. Jiang Chen, Marshal of NAC. Why don't we sit down and talk first? Jiang Chen said with a smile. Haha, Mr. Marshal, you are polite. After some pleasantries, the two sat down on the sofa. Jiang Chen simply signaled Han Junhua to step aside first. Then he crossed his fingers and placed them on his knees and asked directly. It's so chaotic outside now. I wonder why the president came here to visit me in person. Jiang Chen did not forget that Jia City was still in the hands of the mutants. Bring friendship, bring Asia Crystal. There is also a personal purpose. I want to meet the legendary king of Wanghei City. Khan Khan said with a smile. King of Wanghei City? This is a really loud flattery, but I like it. Haha, is that what people in Hangzhou call me? Jiang Chen laughed. Of course, the merchants in Hangzhou who came back from the 6th district praised your demeanor. As a dictator, you can recognize the importance of merchants and strictly abide by the rules of the game you set. To be honest, after hearing that the 10-man committee was replaced by a dictator, we were pessimistic that we would completely lose one of the most dazzling markets, but the facts proved that we were wrong. Khan Khan spread his hands and joked. Seeing that Khan Khan was reluctant to get to the point, Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "It's an honor to be praised by your merchants. The merchants in Hangzhou have always been our most friendly friends. But I think it's better for us to get to the point as soon as possible before we flatter each other." Khan Khan smiled. "Actually, before coming here, I had a good suggestion." "What about now?" Jiang Chen asked. "I changed my mind. Can I hear what the scrapped idea is?" Jiang Chen leaned back on the sofa and looked at the shrewd face. Khan Khan grinned and didn't hide it. "My suggestion is that both sides join forces to pull out this mail blocking our trade route." "What about now?" Jiang Chen smiled. "But now I find that you don't seem to need us. You can pull out this mail by yourself." Khan Khan also laughed. When he said this, Jiang Chen read a hint of deep fear from his pupils. Chapter 391 The Calm Before the Storm. "That's right," Jiang Chen said frankly. He did not hide the strength of NAC, because there was no need to. When the flag of NAC flies over Jia City, the survivors, merchants, and mercenaries who pass by here will naturally bring this powerful and unfamiliar name to the entire wasteland. When he observed Khan Khan also observed him. "I feel danger from you. Can I understand this as a compliment to me?" Jiang Chen said in a joking tone, crossing his legs. "Of course. Our merchants are all over the country, and there are few forces in the wasteland that can scare us. The Northern United District is one, and you are one too," Khan Khan said with a smile. "Because of my guns? Because of your ambition?" Khan Khan stared at Jiang Chen's eyes. This behavior is very impolite in a friendly meeting, but he still did it. He tried to find something in Jiang Chen's eyes that could prove his guess, but the fact is that he did it because Jiang Chen did not hide his ambition at all. "Why do you think so?" Jiang Chen smiled. From the layout of this base, Khan Khan moved his butt and looked around the room's decoration and this office. Generally, people who are fanatical about order have a high pursuit of quality of life for themselves and their neighbors. Of course, the most intuitive reflection is the name of NAC. New Asian Cooperation Organization? What a good name. Feeling uneasy? Jiang Chen just asked playfully in response to Khan Khan's comments. "Yes," Khan Khan said bluntly, "our merchants are considering a problem. If you pull out this nail in the middle of the road, who can guarantee that you won't move your feet from Jia City to Hangzhou City again? So what's your proposal?" Jiang Chen asked with a smile. "Let Jia City become our buffer zone. Without the trade route on the road, our merchants can develop the shallow sea or take the Tehu Lake. But if this mail is gone, I'm afraid we won't sleep well." Khan Khan looked into Jiang Chen's eyes and proposed seriously. "That's impossible." Jiang Chen refused bluntly. "Even if we don't take the initiative, the mutants will attack us in winter. By then, they will have the advantage of the weather, and there is no guarantee that the war will not burn across the Tepu River. I will not gamble with a short peace for an inevitable war. We can help you build a fortress along the river." Khan Khan stretched out a finger and said seriously, 500,000 crystals, as long as you promise not to march west." Jiang Chen was not moved by his proposal. That's a pity. We have raised 2 million crystals by issuing war bonds. The negotiations reached a deadlock. Khan and Jiang Chen looked at each other and fell into silence. After a moment, he suddenly smiled and said, "Do you know why the mutants have so many weapons?" "Why?" Jiang Chen asked indifferently. "According to intelligence, a group of people who migrated from the Northern Union District, an organization called the Church of Twilight, are providing them with logistical support," Khan said with a smile. "This information is a bit outdated. The last time the Church of Twilight sent Sun Jiao out to assassinate, Jiang Chen had already used special methods to pry out the conspiracy of the Church of Twilight from her mouth, and understood that the man named Boyu provided help to the mutants. In fact, it is not difficult to infer this. Those mutants obviously have weak industrial capabilities, but they have heavy machine guns, even artillery and other heavy firepower weapons. Jiang Chen would not believe that no one supports them. However, from Khan's half-smile expression, Jiang Chen read other meanings. "Are you threatening me?" Looking into his eyes, Jiang Chen asked playfully. "I haven't said anything yet. But as a business organization, we reserve the right to invest in any valuable project." Khan spread his hands. Jiang Chen sneered. "Haha, you dare not admit it, even if it is so obvious. You are playing with fire. I'm looking for the possibility of cooperation between the two sides." Khan corrected without giving in. Jiang Chen suddenly stood up. Khan's eyes flashed a trace of nervousness for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "If you think you can stop us from purging mutants in Jia City by funding them, then you can try." Jiang Chen walked in front of him and looked down into his eyes. "But I tell you very clearly, if you really lend a hand to the mutants." Overwhelmed by this momentum, Khan couldn't help but hold his breath, waiting for the next words of the dictator. Jiang Chen grinned and uttered the words that Khan didn't want to hear the most. "That's war." The atmosphere in the office solidified instantly, but this solidified atmosphere soon dissipated with Jiang Chen's next words. "Of course, I believe that with your foresight, you will definitely not make such a stupid choice." His eyes wavered for a moment, but Khan finally nodded hesitantly. "Very good, then welcome back to the negotiation table," Jiang Chen said with a smile, and then sat back on the sofa. The pressure was relieved, and Khan slowly breathed a breath of fresh air. At this time, he suddenly found that his back was soaked with cold sweat. The negotiations finally ended in a peaceful atmosphere. Jiang Chen did not intend to discuss the details of the autumn military operation with him, but talked to him about how to cooperate on the trade route after occupying Jia City. Although the war has not yet started, it is obvious that Jiang Chen has already regarded the mutants' territory as his own. Khan still expressed his concerns that Jiang Chen's sphere of influence would border Hangzhou after occupying Jia City, but facing Jiang Chen's tough attitude, he was helpless. After reaching an agreement on the trade route, the setting of midway supply stations and outposts, Khan hurriedly said goodbye. Seeing Khan leave, Han Junhe walked in. "Why not detain him?" "Because it's meaningless." Jiang Chen yawned, waved his hand and said, "A loose political system is so annoying. Even if you kill its leader, it can hold a meeting and elect another one for you. In other words, this kind of leader is a mascot or something." When I shook hands with him, I knew he was not a professional businessman. Professional businessmen will not get calluses from handling guns. Rather than saying that he is a president, it is better to say that he is a spokesperson and pushed to the front by a group of businessmen. "You don't seem to be worried about the reaction from Hangzhou?" Han Junhe asked. "They need a market, and we have the largest market in the entire Suzhou and Hangzhou province. They have to make a choice between safety and Asia Crystal, and I'm sure they will choose the latter in the end. What's more, my attitude towards the merchants in the 6th block has more or less calmed their emotions. Even if the defense is taken over by NAC, the property will not suffer any loss. Most merchants will definitely think so." Jiang Chen stood up and walked to the desk. At this time, there was a knock on the door outside the office. "Come in." It was Wang Qing who came in, and she looked very serious. "Marshal, there is news from the 6th block that there has been a frequent trend of alien activities in the suburbs of the city recently, including many mutant cockroaches, mutant rats and other aliens have also shown strong aggressiveness. Under normal circumstances, these aliens usually do not actively attack survivors. There are rumors that Wanghei City is brewing a second round of alien tide. Alien tide? Jiang Chen frowned slightly. He has not experienced the so-called alien tide, but he has heard that it is terrible. In the early years, before the World United Organization launched the colony ship, Wanghei City had experienced an alien wave. It is said that the former government troops stationed at the research institute near the city center were driven out of the city by the violent aliens. It is said that the 6th district was also hit hard at that time, but fortunately, with the equipment left by the World United Organization, it finally withstood the impact of the alien wave. It was also at that time that the rule of the 10-man committee was established in the 6th district. It was at this time. Wang King nodded. Let Wang Xiaowu pay attention. He is closer to the city center. I will give him the authority to open and close the shelter gate and allow him to lead the residents on the ground to evacuate to the shelter when necessary. In addition, you should be responsible for increasing the energy reserve of the shelter to 100 fuel rods. Jiang Chen instructed. Understood. Wang King nodded. The time span for the opening of each shelter is very large, and no one knows in which year the other shelters in Wanghei City will be opened. Once shelter number 27 is lost, it will mean that Mac's scientific research capabilities will regress by more than one level. Jiang Chen would certainly not allow this to happen. If a species tide really occurred, he would first need to ensure the safety of the scientists. Regardless of whether a species tide would really occur, it would never be wrong to prepare second-hand. In addition, build temporary shelters in the sewers. Prepare temporary shelters, beds, nutritional mixtures, and heaters. Although we all know that these things will not be used in the end, you should still prepare them just in case. Okay. Wang King nodded, and when she saw that Jiang Chen had no more instructions, she turned around and left quickly. After a pause, Jiang Chen looked at Han Jianhe again. In the next few days, well, it may be half a month. I have some things to do in another place. You can discuss with Sun Jiao to deal with it. She usually takes over my duties when I'm not here. That's it. If a species tide occurs, I will rush back immediately. Jiang Chen thought Han Jianhe would ask him where he was going, but to his surprise, she just nodded. Okay. But my suggestion is that, if an alien tide occurs, as a marshal, you should not risk returning to the dangerous area. I will come back, because there are people here who are very important to me. Jiang Chen said seriously. I will protect them for you. Han Jianhe promised calmly. Thank you. But don't be too nervous. Maybe the rumors are just rumors. Jiang Chen patted her shoulder, then turned and walked out of the office door. The door closed. After staring at the closed door for a long time, Han Jianhe reached out and pinched her face. Then she put her hand down. Strange. She muttered to herself in an emotionless tone and cast her eyes out the window. The sun was shining outside the window, and there was not a cloud in the sky. However, this clearness gave her a vague illusion of unreality. This feeling was like the calm before the storm. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392 Economic Blockade? It was beyond Jiang Chen's expectation. The sky was clear in the wasteland, but when he returned to the real world, it was pouring rain. The big raindrops hit the glass window, making a sound in the storm. The palm leaves outside the window were blown to one side, and the sea not far away was also rolling, with no boats in sight. Perhaps because she heard the noise in the bedroom, Aisha appeared in Jiang Chen's room as quietly as a cat. It must be said that her outfit at this moment is very eye-catching, or it can be said that when she is at home, her outfit has always been so eye-catching. The loose hem of the white shirt lightly covers two slender and toned legs. From an academic point of view, this dressing style can not only arouse the husband's curiosity about whether his wife is only wearing a shirt, but also arouse the husband's visual senses with the corners of the clothes swaying at the root of the thigh. Combined with that cold face and fiery gaze, well, Jiang Chen admitted that if he had not run out of bullets, He might have rushed over and killed her right now. Standing up and walking to her side, Jiang Chen smiled and reached out to button up the button on her collar. Come out with me later. Why don't you go change your clothes first? There's a typhoon outside. After kissing Jiang Chen's lips, Aisha lowered her eyes slightly and said softly. From her voice, Jiang Chen could feel the fiery hint. Typhoon? Is it serious? It's just a passing typhoon. I heard it's 300 kilometers away from Koro Island, with a central wind force of 13. But the news still recommends reducing travel. Passing typhoon? That shouldn't be very serious. Seeing that Jiang Chen didn't speak, Aisha whispered, it's been almost a month. At this point, Jiang Chen didn't understand what she meant, so he smiled and put his forehead against hers. Will you wait till tonight? With a slightly red face, Aisha's mouth curled up into a smile, and she shyly hid her forehead in Jiang Chen's shoulder. After changing into a fairly formal outfit, Jiang Chen went to the garage and opened the door of the black Santana. In such a horrible weather, he naturally didn't want to sit in the Lamborghini. Seeing Jiang Chen sitting in the co-pilot seat, Aisha, who had been waiting in the driver's seat, skillfully started the car and drove into the pouring rain. Because of the heavy rain, the car drove very slowly. After half an hour, they finally arrived at the presidential palace and entered the underground garage under the guidance of the guards. After verifying his identity, the guards respectfully let him pass. When Jiang Chen arrived at the door of the president's office, Zhang Yaping was discussing something fiercely with his chief of staff and the vice president. Seeing Jiang Chen appear at the door, Zhang Yaping was obviously stunned, and then smiled and greeted him. Welcome, Mr. Jiang. What brings you here? The mysterious shareholder of the Starring Trading Company, the vice president and the chief of staff from the same party all had some knowledge of the president's backer, so they were not dissatisfied with the president's interruption of the conversation. They just looked at Jiang Chen calmly. After shaking hands with Zhang Yaping, Jiang Chen asked, are you busy now? Diplomatic issues. Haha, gentlemen, it's lunchtime. Why don't we wait until 2 o'clock to continue the discussion? The chief of staff and the vice president looked at each other and nodded. No problem. Agree. The two left one after another, and only Zhang Yaping and Jiang Chen were left in the office. Zhang Yaping walked to the coffee machine, poured 2 cups of hot coffee for himself and Jiang Chen, and then sat in front of the sofa for rest, and made a gesture of invitation to Jiang Chen who was sitting opposite him. Blue Mountain coffee. Thank you. Jiang Chen smiled, picked up the porcelain cup, took a sip, and leaned back on the sofa. Go ahead. I guess you're not here to have coffee with me. Perhaps because he's been very busy these days, Zhang Yaping spoke very quickly. After a few months of training, the young president finally had some politician's look. Although Jiang Chen hadn't spoken yet, he could tell at a glance that Jiang Chen must have something to ask him. Seeing that Zhang Yaping spoke directly, Jiang Chen stopped talking and said, Marine Resource Development License, Mining License, please help me get these 2 certificates. Are you going to mine? But I remember there is only one copper mine with very low reserves in the Panu Islands. Zhang Yaping frowned. Jiang Chen shook his head, not on sea level, but below sea level. Undersea mining? Yes. The location is near the southern waters of Anchor Island and will not affect the local ecological environment. Okay, I'll help you solve this matter. Although he doubted whether Jiang Chen had the ability to mine, Zhang Yaping nodded and agreed. Anything else? I'm fine. Jiang Chen shook his head and looked at Zhang Yaping with a smile. But you seem to have something else to do. Hearing this, Zhang Yaping smiled bitterly and took a sip of coffee. The Philippines is trying to use diplomatic means to win over neighboring countries such as Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, New Guinea, and Australia on the grounds of undermining regional stability and illegally detaining hostages, and to impose economic sanctions on us. For example, raising export tariffs on Singapore, which will greatly increase the cost of living for ordinary people in Singapore. For example, what are the reactions of various countries? Jiang Chen interrupted him because he didn't understand and asked directly. Illegal hostage detention? Fuck. How thick-skinned does one have to be to say such a thing? Jiang Chen cursed in his heart. The countries in the South China Sea basically stand on the side of the Philippines because of their stance on the China issue. New Guinea has expressed neutrality, but these are not problems. Our trade volume with those countries is not very large. Is the problem Australia? Jiang Chen asked thoughtfully. That's right. Zhang Yaping nodded. Australia is New Zealand's main trading partner. 80% of the goods in New Zealand supermarkets come from Australian ports. Once Australia turns to the Philippines, it will undoubtedly be a heavy blow to New Zealand's economy. According to the latest arms sales agreement between Australia and the Philippines will purchase a retired frigate with a displacement of 3,600 tons from the Australian Navy. Considering this factor, although Australia has not yet expressed its position on this, considering that the Philippines may use it as an additional condition for negotiations, Australia is very likely to lean towards the Philippines. Jiang Chen crossed his legs and fell into deep thought. Zhang Yaping looked helpless. After all, a small country like Singapore really has no weight in the international community. Even if Australia wants to side with the Philippines, they can do nothing about it. What is the Philippines' demand? Cancel the trial in mid-July and release the 41 detained Filipino soldiers unconditionally. But this is impossible. We have announced the trial date to the national media, and many media in Singapore and abroad have submitted interview applications to our court. Zhang Yaping said with a sour brow. At this point, there is basically no room for maneuver. Once the trial is open and the 41 people are sentenced, the Philippines will lose face in the international community, and Aquino's hard-earned tough image will become a joke. A tiny country dares to slap you in the face. Who are you tough for? The invasion incident that broke out last time was already a scandal. If this problem is not handled well, Aquino will have to face the angry families of soldiers and the doubts of the people of his country. However, the Philippines' move still surprised Jiang Chen. It seemed that the mercenary incident more than a month ago still did not teach these monkeys a lesson. Which party is in power in Australia? Jiang Chen asked in a deep voice. Liberal Party. What about the opposition party? Labour Party. Is there any problem with that? Zhang Yaping asked. Very good. Just leave it to me to solve it. Jiang Chen suddenly smiled and stood up from the sofa. Leave it to you? Zhang Yaping asked in confusion. Problems that cannot be solved through diplomatic channels can be solved through political channels. Don't forget, I'm a businessman, and businessmen do not have borders. After drinking the coffee on the coffee table in one gulp, Jiang Chen left Zhang Yaping, who was looking confused, and strode towards the door. Chapter 393 Arms Sales Agreement. In terms of diplomacy, unlike several other allies who are keen to show off their muscles on the international stage, Australia has always been a bit of a soy sauce. This is partly because of its unique geographical location, and partly because its people themselves are not very interested in international affairs. As a joke, when the Australian government was trying to win a seat on the UN Security Council, the opposition party Abbott mocked then Prime Minister Kevin Rudd for spending too much time overseas and away from global actions to address climate change. Compared with Britain, France and the United States, which make a fuss about China every time there is an election, Australia is undoubtedly like a docile sheep. However, this sheep has a good naval force. At present, the Royal Australian Navy has 6 Collins-class conventional submarines, 4 Adelaide-class frigates, 8 Anzac-class frigates, 8 landing ships, 8 mine warfare ships and other equipment. It is not an exaggeration to call it the most powerful naval force in the Pacific region. Not only that, the C-1400 and C-1000 plans currently being promoted by the Australian Navy will cost $7.5 billion and $37 billion respectively, and a total of 3 Hobart-class Aegis destroyers and 12 Collins-class submarines will be built to replace the original equipment. Adhering to the strategy of a new look in 2020 and a complete transformation in 2030, the modernization of the Navy is being vigorously promoted. However, all of this requires money. Compared with the moderate foreign policy and the not-so-loose finances, its determination to strengthen the Navy can be described as ambitious. It is precisely for this reason that how to properly deal with old warships has always been a problem that has troubled Canberra. If the Philippines is willing to buy back these old broken copper and iron, the Australian government naturally has no reason to refuse. As for the additional condition of changing its position on the current situation in the Western Pacific, it is obviously not so difficult for the Australian side to accept it. After all, Singapore is only a small country with a population of 20,000, and Jiang Chen is going to start with this arms sales agreement and ruin this deal. Canberra, the capital of Australia. A taxi stopped outside a Burger King restaurant in the suburbs. The door opened, and a middle-aged man in a grey windbreaker walked to the door. After looking at the decoration of the store, he looked back cautiously. After confirming that there were no reporters following him, he opened the door and walked into the store. Without ordering anything, he walked straight to the last seat and sat down, looking at the black man sitting opposite him. Bakary, the department manager of the Starring Trading Company. Bakary? The middle-aged man took out his mobile phone and looked at it, then looked at Bakary and asked in a low voice, "Yes, I guess you must be Brody." Bakary smiled and stretched out his right hand. Brody, a member of the Liberal Party, has the second most prestige in the party after Malcolm, the leader of the Liberal Party. After hesitating, Brody shook his hand, staring into his eyes and said, "Manager of the Starring Trading Company? Australia doesn't need security guards. I'm afraid I can't help you." Bakary smiled and put his arms on the table. "But we can definitely help you." Brody raised his eyebrows, motioning him to continue. Bakary grinned, revealing his white teeth. "I heard that you have a retired MECO 200 frigate. No way. That ship has been decided to be sold to the Philippines, and it is impossible to sell it to you. If you are here for this, we have nothing to talk about." Brody immediately understood what he wanted to say, and waved his hand. 200 jobs, your constituency, Bakary said with a smile. Brody was about to stand up, but frowned and sat down again. For a congressman, there is nothing more important to him than his constituency. Although he was disdainful of Bakary's proposal, he still sat down and prepared to listen to what he had to say. "You don't understand the situation, Mr. Bakary. I can't convince the Senate to sell a warship to a country we are not familiar with, even if it is an obsolete warship. No one can do that," Brody said. "I didn't say it was sold to the country." Bakary shook his head. "It's impossible for a private person." Brody was about to get up, but Bakary quickly pulled him back and signaled him to give him 10 minutes. Seeing the congressman sitting back in his chair, Bakary smiled. "Our boss plans to spend $5 million to acquire a bankrupt amusement park in New South Wales, buy the warship from the Australian government in the name of the amusement park, and then convert it into a military museum. This does not violate the arms sales regulations at all, because the warship is purchased by an Australian company and is for civilian use." At this point, Bakary stopped talking and smiled at Brody's gradually brightening eyes. He knew very well that the congressman in front of him was already tempted. After thinking for a moment, Brody asked in a deep voice, "How much do you plan to pay for this warship?" $11 million US. Bakary said. Brody shook his head. "I can only reveal that the Philippines offer is not less than $15 million US. I'm afraid I can't convince the Prime Minister with your offer." "Only $11 million US? Bakary asked with a smile. "What do you mean?" Brody raised his eyebrows. "This year is an election year. Do you think voters would like to see a prime minister who sells warships to neighboring countries that are keen on disrupting the regional situation, or a prime minister who is committed to improving employment and maintaining regional stability? Think about it. The prime minister is not a businessman, and the public will not care how much your warships are sold for, as long as the number is not too ridiculously low. Due to the service time, second-hand warships are not worth much. The Hamilton-class patrol ship purchased by the Philippines from the United States is about $10 million US. The Australian warship may have a relatively short service time, but it is definitely not worth $15 million US. The reason why the Philippines is willing to pay $15 million US this time is that Australia agrees to keep the weapons and radar equipment on the warship. When selling this warship, Australia is also taking diplomatic risks, because it is very likely to be regarded as a provocation by China, so the proposal itself is also very controversial in the Australian Prime Minister's office. As a politician, Brody naturally would not have thought of this, and the reason why he did not say it was just to gain more benefits. affected by the decline in iron and aluminum ore prices. Australia's economic data for the whole year of 2015 was disappointing. In such an environment, it is self-evident which option is more popular with voters. Seeing Bakari's words, Brody's eyes wandered unnaturally, and his index finger kept tapping on the table, weighing the pros and cons in his mind. This arms sale is led by the United States. We can't ignore the feelings of our allies, Brody said in a low voice. Bakari smiled and stepped back. Mr. Brody, do you think the US is more important or the upcoming 2016 election? If you cannot be re-elected in this election, your diplomatic efforts will only pave the way for the next Labour Party to govern. If you think my proposal is not attractive at all, we can certainly go to the Labour Party. I believe they will seize this opportunity. After saying that, Bakari stood up. However, this time it was Brody who held him back. Seeing the congressman's expression, Bakari couldn't help but smile triumphantly. He knew that he had successfully convinced him. The rain outside the window was still heavy, and a few silver snake-like lightning could be vaguely seen from time to time in the distance. Jiang Chen lay naked on the soft bed, with the quilt under his belly, holding a mobile phone in his hand, and described as very comfortable. It's been agreed. Congressman Brody said he would discuss this with the party leader. Very good. $16 million have been transferred to your account. You will be responsible for the matchmaking, and buy the bankrupt amusement park and the retired warship. Lying on the bed in the villa, Jiang Chen held his mobile phone and gave instructions to Bakari, who was far away in Australia. I wonder what the monkeys in the Philippines would think if they found that their warships had become amusement parks. It doesn't matter whether this amusement park makes money or not, but in order to solve the diplomatic dilemma of Singapore, Australia, this fence sitter must be pulled off the Philippines' chariot. Jiang Chen can still afford a mere $13 million. By the way, what do you think of Brody? Jiang Chen asked. Cunning. Bakari only used 2 words to describe it. What about his influence in the party? His prestige is second only to that of party leader Malcolm. He helped Malcolm win the election in 2013. Build a good relationship with Congressman Brody. We will need him in the future. By the way, ask him in a subtle way if he is interested in running for party leader. We can provide campaign funds. Jiang Chen's mouth curled up with a playful smile. Okay. Bakari answered concisely. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen breathed a sigh of relief. Without Australia's participation, the so-called economic blockade of the Philippines would become an empty talk. At this time, the quilt curled under his waist moved and slowly bulged. A corner of the quilt was lifted to reveal a pretty face, and a pair of sapphire-like eyes stared at his eyes, rising and falling with a very rhythmic rhythm. Jiang Chen held his breath, smiled and stretched out his hand, gently stroking Aisha's dark brown hair. Be good. I need to make a phone call. However, just as his fingertips touched the edge of the hair, a tingling sensation like ants crawling over it spread from his cerebral cortex, causing Jiang Chen to tense his back muscles, as if he had received an electric shock. Violent shaking and a few gulps of swallowing. Facing that cold and fiery gaze, Jiang Chen took a deep breath and threw the phone aside. What happened next is not something that can be told to outsiders. Chapter 394, Transporting Ore. A bunch of rubbish. What are you doing here? We have been negotiating for half a month, and now you give me this result. The roars in the Philippine president's office have not stopped since half an hour ago. Aquino angrily threw a stack of documents in the face of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, his chest heaving. The Philippine Navy's equipment is basically imported, and the only 2 Hamilton-class patrol ships are also picked up from the United States. It's interesting to say that every time there is a military purchase, the Philippine Defense Minister shamelessly asks the United States to retain the weapons and equipment on the warships, but they are rejected without exception. It's hard not to respect that Wu King is still kneeling and licking at this point. It's hard for people to disrespect it as a good dog. Now that the Australian side has finally loosened its mouth and even expressed that it will make certain reservations on weapons and equipment, the warship that is almost in hand just flew away. Aquino still hopes to rely on this ship to increase the bargaining chips in the South China Sea negotiations. The Minister of Foreign Affairs is also very aggrieved. The Australian president had clearly already nodded, but when they were preparing to discuss the details of the agreement this morning, the other party went back on his word and made things difficult on several key issues. The other party suddenly changed his mind overnight, which caught the Philippine delegation who went to negotiate by surprise. The chief of staff looked at the frustrated Ministry of Foreign Affairs and took a deep breath. "Mr. President, we should call the White House now." The door was suddenly pushed open, and a congressman walked in anxiously. Typhoon Squid passed through the waters near Oras City. Several buildings, including a hospital, suddenly collapsed when the typhoon passed. So far, 31 casualties have been confirmed. Fusike. Aquino yelled in frustration and walked quickly to the door. A series of troubles followed one after another. He had just been accused of diplomatic incompetence by the media, and he didn't want to be accused of poor disaster relief. The White House. Let the foreign minister talk. I must be in the disaster area within 5 hours. The typhoon's passage was like a disaster, but now the sky has cleared up. The heavy rain washed away the dust, and the air was refreshing. The dew on the palm leaves outside the window sparkled with a bright luster, reflecting the dawn in the east. In the early morning, Jiang Chen sat at the dining table and watched the morning news. According to the meteorological personnel, the typhoon named Squid was moving along the western Pacific Ring of Fire, passing the eastern Philippines, and heading towards the coast of southern China. After placing fried eggs, toast, and coffee on the dining table in front of Jiang Chen, Aisha leaned over and kissed him on the cheek, then sat down beside him. Jiang Chen smiled at Aisha's tenderness and continued to look at the TV screen. When he saw the list of several disaster-stricken cities sliding under the TV, his brows furrowed. As if she could read Jiang Chen's thoughts, Aisha asked softly, "Xia Xiao is in Hong Kong, is that okay? I'll call her later." Aisha nodded, picked up her fork, and concentrated on her breakfast. It was almost mid-June. As early as the beginning of the month, BHP Group had shipped 100,000 tons of iron ore and 200,000 tons of aluminum ore to the deepwater port of Coral Island in accordance with the ore trading agreement signed with Jiang Chen. This batch of ore will be used to support the industry in the wasteland, so it is naturally better to ship it there earlier. After breakfast, Aisha drove Jiang Chen to the deepwater port at the southern end of Coral Island. Generally speaking, imported goods such as iron ore are shipped in small 20-foot containers. Since they cannot be filled, a container can only hold about 20 tons of ore. Jiang Chen originally had no specific idea of the 300,000 tons of ore, but he was shocked when he saw it at the port. More than 10,000 containers almost filled up the narrow port, and the originally idle port administrators had to work overtime because of this batch of goods. So, when they saw Jiang Chen at this moment, they naturally had no good face. However, Jiang Chen did not talk much with them. He directly called Zhang Yaping and asked him to contact the person in charge of the port to give all employees a holiday. After confirming that they had all left, Jiang Chen ordered Aisha to guard the entrance of the deepwater port and then began the long transportation. In order to prevent warehouse explosion, Jiang Chen had to go back and inform Sun Jiao first, and then took a car with her to the steel plant in Shengxiang town. After sending the people from the steel plant away, they directly placed the teleportation point in the open space opened up in the backyard of the steel plant for stacking raw materials. It was not until noon that Jiang Chen finally completed the shopping. "I'm really tired." Clapping his hands, Jiang Chen walked out of the already spacious port. He had secretly made up his mind to build a steel plant on Angier Island, at least to roughly process the raw materials here, or simply move the steel production process from the end of the world to the modern world. The efficiency of directly transporting iron ore is too low. In addition, a larger warehouse must be built at the Fishbone base at that time, specifically for the transportation of large quantities of resources. Sitting in the car, Aisha turned her head and asked, "Where are we going next?" "To the passenger terminal. I have to go to Angier Island later," Jiang Chen said, while taking out his mobile phone. Aisha nodded and started the car. Hong Kong. Due to the orange warning of heavy rain, Futureman Technology Company was on holiday today, and Xia Xiao stayed in the apartment and did not go out. Looking at the big raindrops outside the window, she turned her eyes to the TV again. Behind me now is a public hospital in Ores City, Philippines. From the outside, you can clearly see that the area is in a mess. The Philippines has already dispatched military and police to rescue the victims in the area. In the picture, the reporter in the raincoat looked very embarrassed. Philippines? It should be very close to the Panu Islands. Xia Xiao's knowledge of geography is not good, and she only vaguely remembers the approximate location of the Panu Islands. I wonder if he is now. Why do I think of him? Xia Xiao covered her slightly hot face with her hands, and at the same time, grabbed the remote control on the coffee table, and changed the channel. She didn't like watching the news very much. In her memory, she seemed to have only paid attention to the news twice. Once was when Jiang Chen went to Iraq, and once was now. At this time, the phone rang suddenly. Xia Xiao got up, and walked to the bedroom, picked up the phone, that was charging on the bedside table. When she saw the name of the caller, her heart inexplicably pounded twice. What a coincidence, she just wanted to call to confirm his safety, but he actually called first. Hello. How are you guys? Hearing Jiang Chen's concerned voice, Xia Xiao's heart couldn't help but warm up. It's raining heavily, how are you? It's been raining these days, but it cleared up this morning. The typhoon is heading your way now, so pay more attention to safety, and try to reduce travel. Well, you didn't go to work today, did you? Jiang Chen reminded. No. That's good. Jiang Chen smiled. What do you mean by that? How can a boss encourage employees to take a holiday? Xia Xiao muttered in her heart. By the way, after you finish the things at hand, you can take some time to come to Singapore. Come to Singapore? Let me ask first, is it another strange project? Xia Xiao sighed. Rather than saying it's strange, it's better to say it's shocking. Xia Xiao was slightly stunned and asked in confusion. Shocking? What exactly is it? Virtual reality online games, have you heard of it? Jiang Chen said with a smile. Chapter 395 Molybdenum Mining Plan. As Jiang Chen expected, after hearing Jiang Chen's words, Xia Xiao fell into a daze. After recovering from the daze, she repeatedly asked Jiang Chen about the feasibility of the virtual online game and the difference between it and existing VR games. When she heard the words full neural access and second life, she immediately said that she would come over in person as soon as the typhoon stopped, and then hung up the phone. She was already a little impatient to draft the operation plan for this epoch-making online game. Since mining is mainly carried out in the southern waters, the headquarters of Future Mining is located on Angia Island. After parting with Jiang Chen last time, Yang Yuan started to prepare for this matter. After more than half a month of busy work, the framework of this company was finally set up. After getting off the ship, the special car sent by Xinghuan Trading Station on Angia Island was already waiting on the roadside. After getting in the car, Jiang Chen briefly explained the destination, and the driver started the car very skillfully. In the security business of Xinghuan Trading, it is roughly divided into military and civilian. The employees of the military are all placed in Xinai Island, and the employees of the civilian are bodyguards of government officials. The temporary driver who drove Jiang Chen was the bodyguard of the civilian. Jiang Chen rolled down the window, put his arm on the window, and admired this back garden that belonged to him. It was only a little over a month since he last came to Angia Island, but in just over a month, this town has undergone earth-shaking changes. Newly built apartment buildings, houses and commercial streets under reconstruction can be seen everywhere on both sides of the street. Compared with the fishing village-like town, this Angia city finally has some urban flavor. Influenced by the infrastructure construction and tourism resource development projects led by Future People International, many foreign businessmen have also smelled business opportunities and tried to catch such a high-speed train to share the dividends of the new country's large-scale development. When passing through the city center, Jiang Chen was even surprised to find a Coles supermarket that was undergoing store decoration. He vaguely remembered that this seemed to be a brand of a chain supermarket in Australia, and its main business scope was local retail. Obviously, the current retail industry gap in Singapore has made Coles Group smell business opportunities, so they took a bold step and made Angia Island the first stop for their overseas business expansion. Because of the crazy land purchases by overseas businessmen, The Angia city government naturally made a lot of money. With ample funds, they immediately invested the money from the land sale into public facilities reconstruction projects, such as expanding roads and building new schools. While improving the quality of life of the people, the construction of public facilities also provides a large number of jobs. Not only has the originally high unemployment rate been greatly alleviated, but it has also attracted many overseas immigrants due to the shortage of labor. This originally lifeless town seemed to have been injected with a shot of cardiotonic, and it has been rejuvenated. The Seaview cottage that Jiang Chen gave Yang Yuan as an employee dormitory is located on the edge of Angia city. There is only a bare road and a few rows of tall green palm trees at the door, and nothing else. The car stopped on the side of the road, and Jiang Chen told the driver to wait for him in the car. He walked to the Seaview cottage and pressed the doorbell on the wooden door. Footsteps were heard, and the door was soon opened. When he saw his old friend Jiang Chen, Yang Yuan welcomed him into the house enthusiastically. "How is life here?" Jiang Chen sat on the sofa with a smile, after looking around the decoration in the living room. "It's hard to imagine. I couldn't even pay the rent when I was in Australia." Yang Yuan sighed and looked at Jiang Chen seriously. "Although it's a bit hypocritical, I still want to say thank you. Old friend, why thank me?" Jiang Chen waved his hand. If it weren't for the downturn in the industry, based on Yang Yuan's resume, life in Australia might not be worse than here. After all, on this island, apart from the cheap housing, everything is inconvenient. "Have you eaten? How about having lunch here? That's why I came here. It's not a big deal, is it?" Jiang Chen said jokingly. "Haha, it's just a matter of adding a pair of chopsticks. What's the big deal?" Yang Yuan also laughed. "The champagne is here." Sophie took out 2 bottles of champagne from the refrigerator, placed them in front of the two of them with a smile, and then unscrewed the caps for them. Perhaps because she knew there was no hope, this time Sophie did not give Jiang Chen that frivolous feeling, and Jiang Chen was relieved. "Thank you." Jiang Chen took the full wine glass and smiled at Sophie in a friendly way. "You're welcome." Sophie smiled and poured more wine for her boyfriend. "You guys chat first, I'll go cook." Looking at the back of such a virtuous girlfriend, Yang Yuan's face showed a happy expression. "Are you losing your mind?" Jiang Chen teased. Yang Yuan wiped his nose shyly and stretched out his hand to hold the wine glass. "Nonsense, drink. I didn't realize that my sister-in-law can actually cook." Jiang Chen was really surprised by this. No matter how he looked at Sophie, she didn't look like a virtuous person. "Your sister-in-law is virtuous. I bought a tuna from the fisherman in the town yesterday. You will have a good taste later," Yang Yuan said, after taking a sip of wine. "Fish stew?" Jiang Chen smiled. "What kind of soup is tuna stew?" "Sashimi." Yang Yuan laughed. Jiang Chen sincerely hoped that his infatuated roommate could be with his beloved. Although Sophie gave him the feeling that she was not a good girl, he would never say anything about other people's feelings. The two chatted and talked about work. As expected of a talent signed by Rio Tinto in his first year of graduate school, Yang Yuan's work ability is really strong. When it comes to work, his enthusiasm is comparable to that of Sun Jiao, a workaholic. The education rate in Singapore is very low. I hired technical talents from Australia. Due to Rio Tinto's large-scale layoffs, many of the capable seniors I met when I was studying for a master's degree at the University of Western Australia are now receiving subsistence allowances. I have consulted their opinions. The salary they asked for is not high, but the requirement is that the company provides housing in accordance with the Australian Labour Security Agreement. Holidays and housing are not a problem. I only ask about your ability," Jiang Chen said. Yang Yuan smiled confidently and answered affirmatively. "They are all very capable. They are basically former employees of Rio Tinto and have rich work experience." "How many people in total?" "Considering that the company has not yet started mining business, I only recruited 10 people as management. I'm afraid it's not enough. I have an offshore mining project on hand soon." Jiang Chen shook his head. Yang Yuan looked at Jiang Chen in surprise. "So fast?" "The president and I have some personal relationship," Jiang Chen said vaguely. Hearing this, Yang Yuan immediately responded to Jiang Chen with an "I understand" look and chuckled. No wonder the mining license was issued so quickly. In many countries, it may take half a year to get that license. Tell me the type of ore, so that I can prepare first. If a project is launched immediately, these 10 people will definitely not be enough. Molybdenum mine. Molybdenum ore. Have you identified the mining site? Yang Yuan frowned slightly. Jiang Chen nodded and took out a folded geological map from his pocket. Although he couldn't understand it, he still marked the nearest molybdenum deposit to Anger Island. Looking at the red circle on the map, Yang Yuan's brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Do you know that the average depth of this deposit is 7,500 meters? Yang Yuan looked at Jiang Chen strangely and asked, "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Jiang Chen asked, puzzled. The reducing environment of the deep sea makes molybdenum absorbed by organic matter and wrapped in manganese containing colloids, eventually forming nodules that sink to the seabed and break away from the cycle of the biosphere. This marine molybdenum ore deposition method is undoubtedly easier to accumulate molybdenum ore than terrestrial deposition, but this type of deposit generally appears below 5,000 meters in the deep sea, and deeper deposits are everywhere. Mining manganese nodules in this environment is simply as difficult as ascending to heaven. Although as early as the 1970s, manganese nodule mining technology has made certain progress, it is still in the stage of detailed investigation, evaluation, and trial mining. At present, the deepest mining depth in theory is probably the fluid excavation mining experimental system being developed by Japan, and the ideal working water depth can reach 50 to 50 meters. However, this technology has obviously not made a breakthrough. Otherwise the Japanese with scarce resources would have started to build offshore platforms like dumplings. You mean, it can't be mined with existing technology? Jiang Chen had expected this. Maybe it can be mined in the laboratory, just maybe. Yang Yuan smiled bitterly. Your friend the president, isn't he playing tricks on you? Indeed, in the eyes of others, Yang Yuan couldn't think of a better explanation for selling you a mine that can't be mined at all, except for fooling you. Other large mining companies have invested countless billions of dollars and haven't made any splashes, let alone a small mining company like you that started from scratch. I'm afraid it's hard to mine in Kainhei. Thinking of this, Yang Yuan was a little nervous. If the mine could not be mined, wouldn't his job be ruined? However, due to the rigor of a technician and the honesty of an honest man, he could not hide such a big problem and not point it out. However, Jiang Chen did not show disappointment or even anger as he expected, but just showed a strange expression. Zhang Yaping dared to play tricks on me? Don't make trouble. Jiang Chen pondered for a moment and said, I can handle the seabed mining. That's 7,500 meters. Yang Yuan couldn't help but remind him. It's just 7,500 meters. Jiang Chen smiled confidently and said in an unquestionable tone. Yang Yuan was stunned. Although he wanted to use his rich experience in the industry to tell Jiang Chen that this was not realistic, the confidence on Jiang Chen's face made him a little unpredictable. I will take care of the seabed mining part. Your current task is to build an offshore platform directly above the target ore deposit for a source transfer, then purchase a transport ship and build a molybdenum ore refinery on Anger Island. Well, there is also a steel plant and an aluminum plant to process the iron ore shipped by BHP Mining Group. Jiang Chen said. Mining iron and aluminum ore under the sea is not worth it, and the cost of importing is still low. This will cost a lot of money. Yang Yuan couldn't help but remind him. I have plenty of money. After borrowing 30 billion, Jiang Chen now has plenty of money. Okay. Yang Yuan picked up the wine glass and took a sip, pursing his lips. Since you insist, then I will do it. As he was talking, Sophie's voice came from the kitchen. It's time to eat. Make room for the table quickly. There are a lot of delicious food today. Haha, I can smell the fragrance. Yang Yuan stood up and walked to the kitchen to help his girlfriend serve the dishes. Jiang Chen also wanted to help, but was politely stopped by Sophie who was serving sashimi. There's no need to trouble the guests. Yuan and I can take care of it. After saying that, Sophie smiled at Jiang Chen and turned back to the kitchen. Chapter 396 Decline. The seafood feast was set up on the coffee table. Sitting on the sofa, drinking fine wine and champagne, the three of them enjoyed a sumptuous lunch. At the table, Jiang Chen and his old friend were also chatting happily. Wine is easy to open up conversations. The two of them had always been in sync with each other before, and they were even more familiar with each other in this situation. By the way, when are you getting married? Jiang Chen asked casually, holding a glass of wine. Get married? It depends on FIFA's opinion. I'm willing to do it anytime. Yang Yuan's face was also a little drunk. He held Sophie's little hand and confessed affectionately. Sophie's cheeks were also slightly flushed. Wait a little longer. Anyway, it's not urgent. Haha, that's true. No hurry, no hurry. Yang Yuan waved his hand. Although he graduated from graduate school, Sophie just graduated from undergraduate school, about 22 years old. According to the standards of Chinese city people, the sages indeed, not in a hurry to get married. Don't forget to invite me when you get married. I'm waiting to drink your wedding wine. Jiang Chen laughed. Chunan didn't invite him to his wedding. He is still a little depressed. How could that be? Yang Yuan waved his hands, his nose smelling of alcohol. When the wedding comes, set up 10 tables on the beach and invite old Huang and old He. That's a must. I'll pay for the plane tickets. Why are you being polite? I can still afford this little money. The champagne is not very strong. Because of the fruity taste, it tastes lighter than beer. However, after drinking several bottles in a row, Jiang Chen is also a little drunk. Look at Yang Yuan. He can't drink much, but he still pretends to be fat. He was panting at the end of the drinking. I don't know if it was intentional or not. Sophie, who was sitting next to her drunken boyfriend, changed her sitting posture and crossed her legs. This sitting posture is nothing, but it would be a little inappropriate if someone was sitting opposite, and with that skillful movement, Jiang Chen really doesn't believe that she did it unintentionally. Sighing secretly, Jiang Chen just felt a little sorry for his old friend, but he didn't say anything. Just like when the three of them knew who Fang Yuan was, but didn't tell him. Some things are not about right or wrong, but once you say it, you will be in trouble. Brother Chen can drink so much. I'll bring a Yuan to you. Sophie raised her glass with a smile and toasted Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen smiled and raised his glass to clink with hers. It's getting late, and Lao Yuan is so drunk. I'd better leave first. Won't you stay for a while? Seeing Jiang Chen stand up, Sophie tried to persuade him. Yang Yuan was already lying on the sofa, snoring. Looking at Sophie's smile, Jiang Chen knew what she was thinking. No, I have something to do in the afternoon, so I won't bother you. Jiang Chen smiled and declined. Don't say that Sophie is not very beautiful. Even if she is really beautiful, Jiang Chen still can't do NTR friends. Seeing that Jiang Chen had said so, Sophie was naturally embarrassed to keep him. Well, I'll take you to the door. Sophie enthusiastically sent Jiang Chen to the door and watched him walk to the side of the road. When she saw the bodyguard get out of the car and respectfully opened the door for him, a hint of envy flashed across her face. She envied not the car, but the respect on the bodyguard's face. This was the feeling of the upper class. At this time, she thought of the foreign girl named Aisha. She couldn't help but be a little jealous of that girl. Why her boyfriend was so rich and powerful. Looking back at her drunk boyfriend, she sighed and closed the door. Sitting in the car, blowing the hot sea breeze, Jiang Chen looked at the distant horizon from afar. Sir, where are we going next? The bodyguard who was driving asked. The pharmaceutical factory. Jiang Chen said briefly. Because he was drunk, he didn't want to say a word now, just wanted to blow the sea breeze quietly for a while to clear his mind. But after a while, the bodyguard spoke again. Sir, do you need me to turn on the air conditioner? No thanks. Seeing that Jiang Chen seemed a little impatient, but for safety reasons, the bodyguard still spoke carefully. Sir, your seatbelt. Jiang Chen fastened his seatbelt impatiently. Can't you be like Aisha? The bodyguard was stunned. Sir? Nothing. Sorry, I'm drunk. Jiang Chen exhaled a breath of alcohol and waved his hand. Often, only a glance is needed, or no glance at all. Aisha can keenly understand what he needs. It is precisely because of that meticulous tenderness and consideration, that kind of understanding that does not require much words, that he can't help but fall in love with her. Of course, it is a bit unreasonable to ask a man to understand you so well. In terms of service attitude, the bodyguards of Xinghuan Trading are impeccable. Sir, you don't need to apologize to me, the bodyguard said in a low voice. After about half an hour's drive, the car stopped at the door of the nutrient mixture production plant. On the way, Jiang Chen was almost sober. He pushed open the car door and was about to get out of the car, but he paused when he stepped out of the car. "What's the matter?" "Well, my old friend, please help me arrange a bodyguard for him, the kind with a car." "Brother, I can only help you so much." "Okay, sir," the bodyguard said. Jiang Chen nodded, got out of the car, and walked towards the door of the factory. Although the guards at the door recognized Jiang Chen's face, according to the rules set by Jiang Chen himself, that only recognize the iris, not the person, the two still stepped forward to check his identity information. After looking at the camera for 1 second, the identity authentication was quickly completed. The two soldiers saluted him and stepped aside respectfully. Entering the laboratory of the factory, Jiang Chen went straight to Sun Jiao, who was sampling and testing the products. "How many nutritional mixtures has our factory produced?" 30,000 boxes, all piled up in the warehouse. A box is about 100 tubes. In the first month, 3 million nutritional mixtures were produced. This output is already very good. According to the profit of $5 per tube, the income this month is $15 million. Although it doesn't seem much, it's just the beginning. Once the market opens, Jiang Chen will order Sun Jiao to expand production. 2.1 billion fat people in the world are his potential customers. Can you sell so much? Seeing the smug expression on Jiang Chen's face, Sun Jiao couldn't help but ask. "Don't worry, people will rush to buy. You don't have to worry about the sales. I will hire a professional manager to help me take care of it." "That's better." Sun Jiao nodded. He was a technician doing research, and he was more than capable of checking the production quality, but he was not good at doing business. Pack about 15 packages of the nutritional mixture in the warehouse, 20 tubes per package. These 300 nutritional mixtures are samples for business negotiations, so the quality must be checked, and it is best to use new ones. Jiang Chen ordered. "No problem." "Now?" Sun Jiao asked. "Just get it done before the end of get off work today. Someone will come to pick up the goods tomorrow morning." Chapter 397 Nutritional Mixture Sales. In the office of Walmart Incorporated in Bentonville, Arkansas, USA. Sitting in the back of the office, France, the department manager in charge of purchasing looked at the secretary who came in and asked in a deep voice, "Are the results of the analysis out?" The secretary nodded and put a document on the boss's desk. "It is out. Our researchers found several very interesting plant proteins in this thing called nutritional mixture. Although we don't know whether it is synthetic or extracted from a certain plant, there is no problem with food safety. According to FDA standards." France confirmed again. "Yes." The secretary nodded affirmatively. Since the scandal broke out in 2015, Walmart has become cautious in its attitude towards healthcare product suppliers. At that time, the ginkgo leaf tablets sold by Walmart claimed to improve memory, but after inspection by the prosecutors, it only contained carrot powder and wheat flour, while the label said that it did not contain wheat or gluten. That caused allergies to some users. This incident set off a huge uproar at the time, and for a time, Walmart and other 4 large supermarket chains were pushed to the forefront of public opinion. Although people have almost gotten over the incident after more than a year, Walmart is still more than twice as strict as before when choosing suppliers of health products and food. 3 days ago, he received a package signed by Future Man Biology. The package included samples and an invitation letter. To be honest, if it weren't for the reputation of Future Man Group, France might not even look at it, and would have passed on this product labeled liquid food and full stomach weight loss. France picked up the analysis report and scanned it, but the more he read, the more serious his eyes became. Especially when he saw the 2 columns of clinical response and effect estimation, his eyes almost glued to the paper. Pa slapped the document on the table and immediately ordered his secretary. "Send a salesperson to Zingo immediately. We must sign this order." "No, send Jim in person." France immediately ordered his secretary. "But boss, Jim has to negotiate with the representative of Presbytech this afternoon about." "Let his assistant do it." France waved his hand. "Put this report in front of him. He will know the importance of this thing to us." I don't care what method he uses. I hope to see a supply contract on my desk in 3 days. The secretary nodded and turned to go out. Leaning back on the office chair, Franz took a deep breath, and a happy expression appeared on his face. The American fat man. Oh no, it's Walmart's health product sign that is saved. The same scene was staged in different places, and major retailers investigated the origins of this future creature. No one figured out why Future International suddenly entered the health product and food market, but who cares? After discovering the magic of the nutritional mixture, almost all retailers extended an olive branch to the newly established company. We sent out 15 invitations, and a total of 13 retailers responded to our invitation and expressed their intention to cooperate with this product. In the shareholders meeting room, a man was reporting to Jiang Chen, the only shareholder. Tao Ming, a Chinese New Zealander, male, 31, former department manager of Prius Health Products. With rich experience in product planning and marketing, he is currently the general manager of Future Human Biology. Jiang Chen hired him from Prius Health Products through an international headhunting company with a high salary of $20,000 per month. If there is not enough talent, just spend money. Anyway, Jiang Chen, whose R&D cost is basically zero, does not need to consider the problem of losing money. In addition, our online stores on e-commerce platforms such as Amazon and Taobao have also entered the final stage of preparation. The goods will be shipped from the deep-water port of Anger Island to the port of Darwin, Australia, and will be used as a springboard to supply goods to the world. Although he spoke in a very concise manner, he used vernacular that Jiang Chen could understand. It seems that Tao Ming is also very smart and knows that Jiang Chen cannot understand those professional terms. Not bad. How much goods do you need per month? Jiang Chen nodded. For cooperation with retailers, the monthly supply volume should be more than 100,000 boxes. Online store sales are very variable. Depending on marketing investment, sales may fluctuate between 10,000 and 1 million boxes. The profit of one box is $500 and 1 million boxes is $500 million. This profit is really scary. Seeing Tao Ming paused and looked at him hesitantly, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile and said, "Just tell me what you want to say. If you can push the advertisement of nutritional mixture on the Future Man 1.0 platform, it will be very helpful to make the brand famous." Tao Ming tentatively suggested, "No problem, I will contact you. By the way, do you need to get a celebrity as a spokesperson when advertising?" Jiang Chen asked. Hearing Jiang Chen asking about the spokesperson, Tao Ming nodded. "That's better. According to the discussion results of the marketing department, I suggest hiring Hollywood stars such as Emma Watson or Chloe Grace Moretz as product spokespersons to pave the way for the company to become famous in the global market." Wait, why does the name Emma Watson sound so familiar? Jiang Chen frowned slightly, wondering where he had heard this name before. Seeing his boss's expression, Tao Ming smiled. "Have you read Harry Potter novel?" Jiang Chen asked. "Movie. Emma played Hermione." Tao Ming said. Oh, I remember now. But why do I feel that it would be better to let the actor who played Potter be the spokesperson? That guy has become so fat in the last few movies." Jiang Chen glanced at him and said maliciously, "Boss, it's better to put aside the plot of the movie when discussing business." Tao Ming coughed and reminded awkwardly, "Haha, sorry, I interrupted you just now. Which star do you suggest is better?" Jiang Chen asked. "The first choice is Emma. Of course, there are many alternative options. How much do you estimate the endorsement fee to be?" Jiang Chen asked. "It is expected to be between $1 million and $1.5 million. It will definitely be different depending on the endorsement project." Tao Ming replied. "It's not very expensive. Speaking of which, isn't Roberts a director in Los Angeles? It's just right to ask him to help contact." "Okay, I'll leave it to you," Jiang Chen said. Tao Ming nodded. "I have another meeting with Walmart representatives in the afternoon, and we will discuss the supply contract at that time. If nothing goes wrong, I will sign a contract for a monthly supply of 50,000 boxes. Is there any problem with production capacity?" "No problem. I will take care of the expansion of production, and you just need to take care of sales." Jiang Chen waved his hand. At worst, he could go back to the apocalypse and get more end users to expand the planting area of DHC weed and get more organic converters to squeeze juice. If it works well, this nutritional mixture business will bring him 100 to 200 million US dollars in revenue every month. Considering the stability and sustainability of the real economy, the prospects of this future human biology are not inferior to future human technology. At this time, there were several gentle knocks on the door. Tao Ming looked at the door and saw his secretary. The representative of Walmart has arrived. Already arrived? So fast. Tao Ming couldn't help showing a surprised expression. You ask him to wait first. I'm holding a board meeting. No, you go first. Jiang Chen smiled and stood up. I have almost learned everything I need to know. It just so happens that I have to go to the airport to pick someone up later, so let's hold the board meeting here. I haven't reviewed the operational planning plan with you yet. After all, this is a major decision for the company's development, so it's better for the chairman to review it personally. Tao Ming said hesitantly. No, I believe in your ability. Jiang Chen walked to Tao Ming and stopped, patted his shoulder and encouraged him. Do a good job. I will give you enough space to show your skills. Tao Ming looked at Jiang Chen gratefully. To be honest, the reason why he switched jobs here was the high salary offered by future human biology, but what made him more excited was Jiang Chen's promise to delegate power to him. When he worked at Prius before, many excellent proposals could not be passed due to disagreements in the board of directors, tight capital chain and other issues, and in the end, they had to bear the annual performance appraisal. As the saying goes, a man dies for his friend. Just for this trust, he vowed not to let Jiang Chen down. Chapter 398 Entry Blacklist. At the Koro Island airport, a woman in casual clothes and sunglasses dragged her suitcase and walked alone through the empty airport hall. Occasionally, tourists passing by her frequently looked at her sideways. Although her face could not be seen clearly because of the sunglasses, it was not difficult to judge from her graceful figure and beautiful face that this woman was at least a disaster level beauty. Perhaps she was a celebrity traveling alone. Tourists who passed by her hesitated whether to ask for an autograph. Perhaps this would start a wonderful encounter. However, those people were destined to be disappointed. First, Xia Xiao was not a celebrity. Second, the beauty had already fallen in love with her. It was June, the sun was scorching, and Xia Xiao felt the unique tropical heat as soon as she came out of the airport. After leaving the airport, she walked straight to the road outside the airport and stood under the palm tree beside the road. She shook her head at the taxi driver's horn, indicating that she was waiting for someone, and then took out her mobile phone to check the time. 10 o'clock. The flight arrived half an hour earlier, and there was still about half an hour before the agreed pickup time. Her thumb hovered over the phone icon on the phone screen for 2 seconds, and finally moved to the camera icon. She clicked on the camera function, and selected the front camera. Looking at the pretty face on the screen, she was silent for a moment. Are the bangs a little crooked? She reached out, and fiddled with the air bangs she had permed 2 days ago, trying to make it look a little more natural. On the plane, she put on light makeup. As for why she did this, she herself didn't know. Maybe she wanted to capture the stunning moment from a pair of pupils, or maybe she wanted to cover up the brilliance of arrival. It seemed that these two starting points were the same. Just as she was looking in the mirror, a funny Mandarin voice suddenly came to her ear. Beautiful lady, is this your first time to the Pano Islands? Are you calling me? Xia Xiao was stunned and turned back to look at the tall and thin European with a hooked nose and deep eye sockets. After a moment of silence, she responded briefly with her throat. Yeah. According to her experience, most people who approached her would walk away embarrassed after hearing a cold response. But she was obviously overthinking it. Implicitness and reserve are the unique demeanor of Asians. Faced with Xia Xiao's coldness, the hook-nosed man became even more interested. He shamelessly approached her and spoke in a familiar tone to try to get close to her. What a coincidence. This is my first time here too. I was a little nervous on the plane. If this place is as messy as the news said, wouldn't it be a waste of my trip? But as soon as I got off the plane, I realized my mistake. Oh, because I met you. The hook-nosed man stared into her eyes with what he thought was a sentimental look. However, Xia Xiao was just stunned. Is this a confession? It was just the first time they met. Seeing that the beautiful woman had no reaction, the hook-nosed man smiled slightly and was not discouraged. He took out his business card from his pocket gracefully. Kevin Adams, a professional traveler from America, editor-in-chief of Traveler magazine. This is my business card. You can call me Kevin. I wonder if I can have the honor to invite you to visit this beautiful southern island. She instinctively felt a little annoyed by this person who was circling around her like a fly, especially the undisguised lecherous gaze. However, just when she was troubled about how to get rid of him, a familiar voice came to her ears. "Hello, Mr. Adams. It's better to call you by your last name." Jiang Chen took the business card from him unceremoniously, ignoring his frozen expression, took out his own business card, smiled and handed it to him. "Well, I almost forgot. This is my business card." Seeing Jiang Chen, Sun Jiao secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Speaking of which, it seems that he always appears in front of her when she is in trouble and helps her out. Thinking of this, Sun Jiao can't help but feel a sense of security in her heart. But this international friend is not so friendly. Kevin looked Jiang Chen up and down, and a hint of anger flashed across his face. He did not take Jiang Chen's business card. "I didn't say I wanted to exchange business cards with you, sir. Or are people from your country so rude in front of ladies?" As he said that, he raised his hooked nose and looked at Jiang Chen with that annoying attitude. Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows, but he was not angry. He put away the business card and smiled. "Rude? Our etiquette is not to cause trouble to others." "I don't know what your etiquette is. To cause trouble to others?" Kevin's face turned red because he could not refute Jiang Chen's words. Seeing that he stopped talking, Jiang Chen smiled playfully and ignored him. Jiang Chen turned to Sun Jiao and said apologetically, "Sorry, I'm a little late." "No, I was early." Sun Jiao said a little embarrassedly. "Is he jealous?" Thinking about it, Sun Jiao inexplicably felt her heartbeat speed up. Without noticing Sun Jiao's psychological activities, Jiang Chen smiled and said, "Let's talk about it in the car first." Jiang Chen took the suitcase from her hand. "Wait a minute." Seeing Sun Jiao was about to leave, Kevin couldn't help but get anxious. He stepped forward to stop the two of them, but ended up bumping into a wall. The man in police uniform stood in front of him like an iron tower, looking down at him indifferently. "What are you doing? You're blocking the road," Kevin said angrily. Seeing the goddess he met got into someone else's car, he was annoyed in his heart and unconsciously took out his anger on the man who was blocking his way. "Sir, I suspect there is something wrong with your passport." "Passport? Impossible." Kevin took out his passport and stuffed it into his chest. "Open your eyes and look carefully." Glancing at the passport, the police nodded. "Yes, there is indeed a problem with your passport. Your ID has been registered on the entry blacklist. Please contact the embassy of your country and submit a certificate of no criminal record before you can enter." "Blacklist? This is impossible." Kevin roared angrily. He has traveled to 34 countries, and this is the first time he has been stopped because of a blacklist. As far as God is concerned, he has never done anything illegal. However, the police ignored his roar and shrugged. "I'm just following the procedure." Seeing that arguing was useless, Kevin calmed down a little. "Okay, I will contact the embassy and tell me how to get to the embassy in Koro. I'm very sorry, sir. The Panu Islands are not open to your embassy for the time being. If you need help from your embassy, I suggest you go to the Australian and American embassies and consulates." The policeman did not lie to him. The number of tourists in Singapore has only increased recently. The embassies and consulates of various countries are still under negotiation. Currently, only 7 embassies have been established, namely China, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, Australia, and New Zealand. And the embassy staff of 4 of these countries are still on their way. What the foo.ck? You mean I took a 2-hour flight and now I have to go to Australia to get my documents? Kevin completely exploded. "Yes, sir, we can assist you in applying for a flight ticket. So now, please return to the terminal," the policeman said seriously, holding back his laughter. "If you want to blame someone, blame you for offending someone you shouldn't offend. Who asked you to be blind?" He has been a policeman for so many years and has experienced 2 changes of regime. This is the first time he has heard of Singapore's entry and exit blacklist. But since that person said there must be one. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399 Spy? What happened at the airport was just a minor incident. As soon as he sat in the driver's seat, Jiang Chen put the unfortunate foreigner behind him. He put the car key in and started the car. The car window rolled down, the air conditioner turned on, and a ray of coolness instantly blew away the heat in the car. "Thank you," Sun Jiao said, after fastening her seatbelt. "You're welcome, just picking someone up." As he spoke, Jiang Chen started the car. "No, I mean just now at the airport gate." Recalling the way Jiang Chen helped her out, her heartbeat accelerated inexplicably. "Oh, that, you're welcome. Remember to call me if you get into any trouble in the future," Jiang Chen said nonchalantly while holding the steering wheel. The security in Singapore is not very good and he is unfamiliar with the place outside. He is really worried about Sun Jiao's safety. How about giving her a bodyguard? Jiang Chen thought to himself. Hearing Jiang Chen's words, 2 blushes flew up on her expressionless face, and the tiny beads of sweat seeped out of her fair skin, and behind the light makeup, she looked like a peach covered with dew. Because she forgot what to say, Sun Jiao didn't respond for a long time. The atmosphere in the car gradually became ambiguous in silence. At first, Jiang Chen didn't notice this until he saw that Sun Jiao hadn't spoken for a long time and peeked at her from the side, and then he saw the entangled feelings in her heart from the blush. Because the car window was closed, a touch of jasmine fragrance entered his nose. Trapped in this situation, Jiang Chen's heartbeat accelerated. "Speaking of which, did you perm your hair?" In order to break the silent atmosphere, Jiang Chen found a topic and asked. However, this casual question happened to hit the bullseye. When you are with a girl, you can disagree with her changes, but you must not ignore the changes she made in her hairstyle and clothing, even if it is just a hairpin or a mobile phone chain. Because in places you can't see, she may have been worried about this small change all night, and this whole night of entanglement is to attract your attention. In coincidence, Jiang Chen made a clever move to pick up girls, and even he didn't know it. Because the car was driving to a winding place at this moment, his attention was all on the road ahead. Sun Jiao trembled obviously, moved her sitting position somewhat unnaturally, and asked with some difficulty, "Does it look good?" She regretted it as soon as she asked. "Doesn't this seem too frivolous? Should I wait for him to say it himself to be more natural?" Sun Jiao tilted her head slightly to look out the window, thinking with some worries. However, normal men don't think so much. Jiang Chen praised her frankly. "It looks good, very fresh. But why did you suddenly want to perm your hair?" Sun Jiao has always given him a feeling of being classical, dignified, and keeping people at a distance. However, this hair bangs gave her a little more of the little fresh flavor that only ordinary people can have. Colleague, well, a friend said that I usually dress too formally, so she suggested that I try to change it. Or too old-fashioned. Sun Jiao silently added this sentence in her heart. "Is that so? But I think the original natural side bangs are more suitable for you." Jiang Chen smiled and said casually, "Then I'll perm it back." Sun Jiao said immediately, Don't, I just made a suggestion. Frequent perming has a great impact on hair quality." Jiang Chen said embarrassedly. "Well, okay." Sun Jiao nodded and looked at the mirror secretly in the car window with some concern. Speaking of which friend, Jiang Chen was a little surprised that Sun Jiao actually made friends. He always thought that her social circle was only limited to the work level. Sumenki, the manager of the our department, she moved to Hong Kong with us from Guangzhou City. Sun Jiao said simply. As they chatted casually, Jiang Chen soon drove to his villa located at the northern end of Coral Island. When he parked the car in the garage, Aisha was already waiting for him there. Knowing that there were guests coming to her house, she was dressed conservatively. She wore a light blue summer t-shirt and a pair of cool short jeans, which made her look beautiful and full of energy. After opening the car door, Aisha enthusiastically helped Xia Xiao take the gift. It had been several months since they last met, and Xia Xiao had an indescribable feeling for this foreign girl. On the one hand, she was a rival in love, and on the other hand, she was her lifesaver. Facing Aisha's frankness, she actually felt a little at a loss. Although it was her suggestion to stay at Jiang Chen's house, she backed off when she really walked to the door. While Jiang Chen arranged a guest room for her, she had been secretly observing Aisha's eyes. Unfortunately, she did not see any jealousy or envy in Aisha's eyes. This made her a little annoyed. Did she look so uncompetitive? She had even put on makeup on the plane. At this moment, 2 blushes suddenly appeared on her face. She suddenly realized that her thoughts just now were very childish. Where is the virtual reality helmet? After putting her luggage away, Xia Xiao immediately asked, trying to use work to resolve the embarrassment in her heart at the moment. No hurry, it's not too late to study it after lunch. Why don't you take a shower or something to relax? The bathroom is at the end of the corridor on the 2nd floor. Jiang Chen said with a smile. Xia Xiao hesitated and nodded. Since there was no direct flight, she had been flying since last night and was indeed a little tired now. At this moment, the phone in Jiang Chen's pocket suddenly rang. I'm going to answer a call. Ask Aisha if you need any help. After speaking, Jiang Chen took out his phone and walked to the sofa beside him. As soon as the call was connected, Ivan's serious voice came over. Boss, a spy was found inside the company. Spy? Jiang Chen was stunned and frowned slightly. Are you sure who it is? It is unlikely that there will be a spy in the management because there are electronic collars. Once discovered, they can't escape, and no one should be stupid. However, it is hard to say about the grassroots. In addition to the 100 refugees who first joined the starring trade, the loyalty of the newly recruited soldiers is still questionable. It's not clear yet, but yesterday it was found that a backdoor was installed in the computer of the Koro Island branch, and 7 meters of data was sent to the IP of Iceland. Ivan said in a deep voice. Iceland should be just a springboard, and no one knows where the real data is sent. I know about this, don't alarm the snake for the time being. Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. Understood, Ivan said. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen held the phone and fell into deep thought. There may be too many people interested in the starring trade company. The Philippines is the most suspected, and the United States, which is meddling everywhere, may not be able to escape the involvement, and even China, a potential ally, may also be involved. Two cool arms gently wrapped around Jiang Chen from behind. As if sensing his troubles, Aisha whispered in his ear. What happened? There's a spy inside starring trade, Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. A cold light flashed in Aisha's eyes, and she whispered in Jiang Chen's ear. Do you need my help? Do you know how to use a computer? Jiang Chen said helplessly. Aisha shook her head, and her sapphire-like eyes flickered, as if they could speak. But I can kill people, Jiang Chen sighed, after reading the meaning in her eyes. This is not a problem that can be solved by killing people. The key is to find the person. But how to find him? Please Yao. Obviously, they are not familiar with each other. It's not that Yao's technology is not good, but Yao may not be very familiar with the network framework and program of this 21st century. To give a very simple example, people who are good at playing LoL may not be super good at playing game consoles. In terms of defense, Yao can certainly beat all the hackers in this world, just like the codes of New Era and Future Man 1.0 have not been cracked yet. That's because no one in this world can understand the codes she wrote, let alone find backdoors in the programs she wrote. Because there are no important secrets stored in the computers of starring trade, they all use the Win 7 operating system and programs from this world. Although there are no important secrets, the feeling of being monitored is still very unpleasant. Jiang Chen frowned and pondered. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. That's right. Speaking of which, I still have a little hacker under my command, who I haven't used yet. Slapping his head, Jiang Chen immediately remembered the sister control he raised in Europe, and dialed the number by pressing the screen of his mobile phone. Chapter 400 Xia Xiao's shock. Jiang Chen poked his finger on the screen, selected an overseas number, and put the phone back to his ear. Soon the call was connected. "Hey, where are you now?" "Germany," Zilei replied in a tone of voice that said "where else?" "Seeing orthopedics?" Jiang Chen teased. Zilei was stunned. Obviously he didn't know the German orthopedics joke. "No, I'm taking care of my sister in Munich hospital now. She just received a treatment 3 days ago." Jiang Chen was still paying attention to the situation of the brother and sister. After all, he was now paying for their living expenses. The blind sister was receiving treatment in Munich, and her brother Zilei was not idle either. After receiving a 3-month military training in Niger, he was sent to Munich by Ivan. While studying computer science at the University of Munich, he took care of his sister. "Is your sister better?" Jiang Chen asked casually. "Much better. The doctor said her condition is simply a miracle, and she will be able to see again in 2 months at the latest." "Thank you," Zilei said solemnly. "You're welcome. Doing good things occasionally is good for the body and mind. Besides, I also got a loyal hacker to work for me." Jiang Chen joked. "Yes, my life is yours," Zilei said calmly. "Okay, enough joking. Keep your life. I need you to do something for me." "Go ahead," Zilei said. "Well, the thing is, a backdoor was installed on the server of Xinghuan Trading Company. Although I can easily destroy it, I want to know which worm installed this backdoor. At present, there is only one intelligence. The IP address of the information leak points to Iceland, but even if I'm computer illiterate, I know that it is just a springboard. I need you to find out where the information is sent, and it would be best if you can find out who the spy is." "Can you do it?" Jiang Chen said. "No problem." Zilei grinned, revealing the frivolity unique to teenagers. After all, he is one of the top 3 masters in the Chinese Hacker Alliance. After such a long period of advanced study, he is confident that his current ability will only be stronger than before. "Okay, you can brag after the mission is completed. Do you need a plane ticket?" Jiang Chen asked. "No, I can work anywhere with an internet connection. Give me the access rights to the server, and don't alert the spy for now." Zilei shook his head. "Okay, I'll leave it to you." Jiang Chen hung up the phone. With a playful smile on his face, Jiang Chen edited a text message and sent it to Ivan, instructing him to give the server rights to Zilei in Munich. Now, the cat and mouse game begins. Aisha was still the chef for lunch. Under the enthusiastic guidance of Jiang's mother, her cooking skills have improved greatly. Xia Xiaoyu, who hadn't eaten her cooking for several months, almost swallowed her tongue. Seeing Jiang Chen looking at her with a surprised look, Xia Xiaoyu was slightly stunned, and then she realized that her eating manners were a bit too big. Her pretty face blushed, and her hands became reserved. Aisha smiled slightly at the two of them, but didn't say anything. Her blue eyes, which could speak, flashed with interest. After dinner, Aisha carried the plate into the kitchen. Jiang Chen, at Xia Xiaoyu's request, took her to the gym on the first floor. In the corner of the gym was a simple server, and next to the server were 2 virtual helmets the size of motorcycle helmets. After seeing this thing, Xia Xiaoyu couldn't wait to walk forward and put the helmet on her head. However, after groping on the helmet for a long time, she couldn't find the switch of this thing. Seeing this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile and walk towards her. "How do you turn it on?" Xia Xiaoyu held the helmet with both hands and asked helplessly. "Don't rush to turn it on. I suggest you find a comfortable place to sit, or lie down first." Hearing Jiang Chen's words, Xia Xiaoyu asked hesitantly, "Will virtual reality affect the real body?" "No, the body in the real world is equivalent to entering a deep sleep state. If you play while standing, you may fall down if you don't have good concentration." Jiang Chen teased. "That's it." Xia Xiaoyu nodded in understanding, looked around, and walked to the recliner beside her. Seeing her lying down, Jiang Chen continued to remind her. "The start switch is voice activated. Silently say start or star." Taking a deep breath, Xia Xiaoyu suppressed her excitement. Prepared to witness this historic moment, she spoke in a clear voice. "Start." The originally dark screen lit up instantly. Countless light particles rushed in front of her in a 3-dimensional posture. Xia Xiaoyu subconsciously shrank back, but soon she found that it was just a picture projected on the screen. I thought it was the kind that didn't use a screen. Seeing the interface on the screen, Sun Jiao said with a little disappointment. But then she was relieved. It seems that the technology that connects the mind to the virtual world is unlikely to be conquered so easily. It should be considered good to be able to achieve this level. This is just the startup interface. The excitement is still to come. However, Jiang Chen's words aroused her expectations again. With a half-believing and half-doubting mentality, Sun Jiao wanted to say something, but a series of dialogue boxes suddenly appeared on the screen in front of her vision, and at the same time, a clear standard system sound rang in her ears. Iris verification program started. Confirmed as a new user. Registering. Genetic code has been logged in. Please set a nickname. Staring blankly at the words in the center of the screen, Sun Jiao slowly took a deep breath. Jiao. User registration is complete. Welcome, Miss Jiao. This ID will be bound to your iris information, and in principle, it cannot be cancelled or registered repeatedly. Your privacy will be kept absolutely confidential in the virtual world. I wish you a happy virtual journey. Reminder, please make sure your body is lying flat when accessing the virtual reality, and do not use it while driving, drunk, in public places, etc. Looking at the startup icon in front of her, Sun Jiao tried to calm her thumping heartbeat, and spoke. Start. After receiving the user's command, the image on the screen began to gradually darken. Along with the soothing startup sound, Sun Jiao felt a slight itch on the back of her neck, as if ants were crawling over it, and then her consciousness was peeled away from her body. This feeling was like diving, and her 5 senses were covered with a layer of gauze, but soon the 5 senses became clearer than ever before. This is. Sun Jiao stared blankly at her hand, and then looked around. Because she was too shocked, she forgot the language for a moment. Yes, she didn't know how to express the shock in her heart at the moment. The milky white cube space, there was nothing here, but it was unprecedentedly full. The binary code of 0 and 1 flashed on the wall, adding a touch of science fiction shock to the room. She stood in the center of the cube, staring blankly at the panel that gradually appeared in front of her. She stretched out her hand and her fingertips lightly touched the translucent panel. A hint of coldness. A layer of ripples spread from the point where her fingertips landed, rushing to the wall of the cube. The wall was broken, as if a window was opened, and a vivid picture scroll appeared in front of her. Endless rice fields, towering mountains, huge sails cutting through the wind and waves, towering city walls, god-level continent, and now, she was standing on a hill. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.